I have never played a ranked game of Valorant. Zero. I have played 0 ranked matches.
CSGO used to be a lot better about it. I know they've been changing a lot of their rules lately. Thanks, Hunton.
I think this is a better opportunity for me. It's a better fit, whatever. If you're holding them hostage, that is not good for your success, right?
You don't get to have a stream without paying the people to do it. That's not how this works, mate. This isn't some Mickey Mouse, like turn up at the sandpit and try and, you know, make something happen. You don't get to be Red Bull and then here's a great opportunity for you guys to get some exposure. Yeah, they try to suck me down on Twitch TV, but I feel so empty without me. What's up, fam? We're back with an episode.
I'm out. That's it. I'm done.
Valoranting.
This looks like a jumper fed silly.
That's it. I thought every caster wanted to be a rap guy. What's going on? I thought I understood my audience well. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Valoranting. We're here with Ryan Central and Van Silly, of course. Guys, obviously I missed last week. Sorry. I was no big deal.
I was
just chilling in Vegas, the Sin City, as they call it, guys. Don't know if you know that. Yeah, there's a lot of casinos out there, and it was hot as but I'm back. Vans, how you doing, man, Mr. 8-bit? What's going on? I see you built your power rack in the gym finally.
Dude, I'm actually looking at it, and like I'm like half chode looking at it. I love the setup. Hopefully you had fun in Vegas. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? And I don't know why. Every time it's just not Mitchman or not Veli or whoever our guest is, I have to be the one that's pixelated. There's got to be something in our VMix that it's like one person out of the 3 has to look like shit. And of course, it's not going to be you, beautiful gentlemen. I'll fucking take it.
Vance, I think you've gone for like the something about Mary hairstyling technique.
I love it. You like it? I love it.
Yeah. All natural, I guess.
What's that on
you? Replicating me at this point. I should really cease and desist that.
Shit. Well, Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm not pixelated. I'm a professional. Yeah. I just realized the dog on screen when it first came on terrified me. I didn't know what it was. It was just a block of white that you were just picking up.
That's his Merkin. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you got to keep yourself going nowadays, especially as we're going into the quieter season of events in Valorant. But yeah, we'll see what this week brings.
It isn't 3 weeks. It seems that far away, but not that far away, you know?
I think this part of the year, guy, is kind of always a little bit quieter, I think, for esports, right? It's when like everyone's worlds and majors and stuff sort of wrap up. But I mean, with game changes and, you know, some of the third-party events that we're actually seeing out of Europe here, it looks like there's a little bit of action going. I don't know if I could say the same for NA. It seems a little bit grim, but Europe's still popping.
Worlds and finals and all that are happening, which is super busy for like October, November. But I feel that even just tier 2, tier 3 online tournaments and anything else is actually quite busy because like I'm trying to organize something with Steel Series and I'm trying to find production people and stuff like that too, and everybody's fucking booked for that weekend, which is coming up. So I was like, what the fuck's going on in the online world? So there's a lot of stuff going on, at least that people don't know of, that still supports the local communities, you know? So
yeah. This is it. This is the can't beat 'em, join 'em idea. Vans couldn't get a decent rate from TO, so he decided to become one himself and fucking set the mark. So hold on, you're a TO now, basically, right?
Yeah.
The Steel Series, yeah.
You know what I do?
What?
I pay their rates.
Oh yeah.
Shit,
nice.
Man, the ground's
this is all we have to do. We just have to replace the fucking numpties in this industry. We'll talk about it later on. With people like Vans, who's already too nice anyway. And get our casters paid proper fucking cash money. That's what I like to see. Good shit. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do that, Vans. That seems like a tough job. Running tournaments.
It's fucking fun.
Yeah. Okay.
It's definitely tough. There's a lot of shit going on, but it's actually really, really fun to do. And at the same time, I'm learning a lot too. So like from a talent's perspective, like understanding how to set up everything and like basically project manage all these tournaments has been fun. I've been a one-man army trying to like dabble through everything, so you're learning a lot at once. So that's the fun part.
Hold on, before we go any further, if you hire me for the event, but you give yourself the final, can I throw back to the desk saying like back to the old man crew? What was it?
The old boys club. I don't want to bring
that. I don't want to come out on. I didn't see that game.
It
did come out from Bardolph's mouth.
Richard Lewis's face was like, thanks, James. Great show, guys.
Oh man,
I'd rather not talk about that. I fucking love all of those guys.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll touch on that today. I've got opinions on it. I don't mind talking about it at all.
Yeah.
I'm quite close with DDK, and we talked a lot through it. And I think he got kind of thrown in the fucking he got thrown under the bus in that one.
Yeah.
He was like, everything's fine. This is fine. James is like, anyway, not much to talk about today. It's a bit of a longer preamble because we haven't hung out in a little while, ladies and gentlemen. Great to have you all back as well. Let's go over a little bit what we're talking about today. First of all, we're getting a rare opportunity to pick the brains of some of the biggest minds in Valorant. That's right. We're going to have a coach roundtable with Dream, Psycho, and Fraud. And we're going to throw out some questions. I asked, you guys on Twitter if you had any questions you wanted to ask a Valorant coach. Some of you had decent ones. Some of you were fucking trolling me. I guess that's fine. That's how Twitter works. We're also going to talk about the Redbull Homeground tournament that went down on the weekend. Not the first of its kind, of course. We've had them in the past. It's great to see that tournament series still going. We'll talk about, of course, the brothers and their success throughout that tournament itself. And then we'll talk a little bit about, I guess, what's on everybody's lips right now is Arcane. Absolute fucking banger, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But also just the way that its universe is permeating all of Riot's IP and even the zeitgeist of our generation right now. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to touch on it briefly, but as we anticipated, gentlemen, in the aftermath of the year, or at least for teams that didn't qualify to champions, we'd have a few roster changes, right? We kind of expected there to be some pretty nutty roster mania. Guys like George Geddes are keeping themselves up all night and fucking pumping out these reports. So let's talk about some of the ones that we know. The first one, I guess, is not that shocking considering their lack of success at the LCQ in APAC here, but allow and suggest are departing Nuturn.
Yeah. That's a sad part for me too, because Nuturn did look good in Iceland. They look good with Lakia. They don't have Lakia anymore. Then they couldn't find somebody to replace Lakia. And then I felt that they were a little bit stale too. I was talking about it with other people as well in my community, and I was like, for me, in Korea, there's still going to be that powerhouse of Vision Strikers. And everybody else is still like trying to catch up to Vision Strikers still. And I think that we had something pretty close, for example, with Nuturn. Maybe F4Q here and there or Damwon Kia. But they're currently not at the same level of consistency as Vision Strikers so far. So I think naturally anything under VS is going to just implode until they find a roster that could actually compete in that region. Because if you look at the APAC last chance qualifier, that shit was fucking insane, where all the all the South Korean teams in general didn't do that well.
Right, and then we had these APAC teams just pop off, right? Like Full Sense and Northeption really impressed us, right?
Exactly, and which is what it's awesome, because every time you look at every other tactical FPS shooter or just every FPS, it's always about Korea and China. Yeah. But now when you look at the scene in APAC, you're like, oh shit, like Thailand, the Thai teams are growing, the Japanese teams are growing, and Indonesian
I feel like we ask Seth that same question every time we get him on the show. We're like, so is everyone big in Korea? Is everyone getting excited about and he has to give us the same answer a lot of the time. But Ryan, I feel like the scene is not that deep in South Korea yet. Really one team that's kind of dominating, and I guess F4Q and Nuturn had brief flashes, but we know that those two teams now are heading for revamps.
I think it's also an element of like so many of the teams that take part in any stuff in the Korean region for VCT has to be local to Seoul to play on LAN, right? So it kind of already limits a lesser scene to an extent. It's not like Overwatch that took the region by storm. Sure. I think for Nuturn, the surprising thing is still that wait, which is it? There's a player that I remember watching him in Reykjavik, and there was a whole hubbub about whether it would have been Solo. The fact that Solo's still on this team is really surprising, considering like Allow suggest they were consistent ones. Solo was the player that was near on retiring in the same level as the Vision Strikers player that became their coach as well recently. So I just guess they're opening it up for other talent, picking up an element of a super team because it's there in the region. It's just how much can Nuturn support those players that maybe are really good, but outside of Seoul, how well can Nuturn bring those players in, introduce them to a stage, and just put together a better, younger team, right? The fact that it's still got Solo on it, that's a bit odd.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think a lot of people like Glow, right? A lot of people thought he might sort of head the way of coaching or retirement. I also think it's interesting that we have more than any other esport I've seen, like South Korean and Japanese nationals playing together. on teams.
Mhm.
I saw a little bit of this in the Pacific Contenders region for Overwatch, but really only very recently. So, they're not sort of all group, they're all playing, in their mother tongue, so to speak. So that's interesting. Again, I think we all want to see that South Korean region develop some depth, but maybe not too quickly. Maybe give the other regions a chance to actually dominate, because there still seems to be a Damocles sword effect about South Korea in any esports. I'm very curious to see if that holds up in Valorant as well. Okay, let's talk about something a little bit closer to home, at least for myself and Van Silly. We've heard that the illustrious former fearless leader for Team Envious has found a new home. Mummay has been signed to Andbox.
Super happy to see this from Mummay. So right now, now that it's official, I don't know if they played like the last NSG monthlies together, but I feel that it's been a long time coming from Mummay. I think now he's going to be able to play like consistently that jet op like he continues to want. I don't think he's going to flex like he did in Envy. And even if you look at the roster for Andbox right now, they currently have a new fifth also that they're trialing, which is Plix. So Plix, formerly of the Sonics, right? The Australian teams that came over to North America, that says that they want to create a dent into the competition in NA. Then they got 13-1 by Sentinels on Split. And then now he's trialing with this team too. So I'm really looking forward to Andbox in the future.
So obviously we saw Mummay. Mummay was playing operator on Envy, but played smokers primarily and a little bit of Jet, right? But it was mostly like Omen and then Astra. And now he's obviously playing a bunch of Viper here. So seems like a big change up in role. I guess because you're on a team with Mada, right? So he doesn't have to be an operator player anymore. I think Mummay might be, transitioning to being a full smoker. I don't know if he's IGLing on this team or anything, but I guess so. Thinking back to that Envy team, it seems like a really odd way to make use of Mummay. Having him like playing Astra operator on fucking Haven, for Christ's sake.
That's the thing.
And his excuse was, maybe this was legitimate, right? But his reasoning was always like, it's fine. I can still post up on angles with Shrouded Step. I don't know.
Well,
it was weird.
You look at teams like Team Liquid, though, that are starting to show that it isn't just jet opping that can be viable. You can have two ops on a lineup, but it doesn't have a huge amount of diminishing returns. Is it risky? Yes. Is it expensive? Hell yeah. But there is an element of success to it. And with agents like Chamber coming into the game, which not only looks hype as fuck, but also is an agent that is clearly distinguishing themselves as, we are another agent in a completely different role that can make use out of being mechanically gifted and also using an operator, because you get an operator as your ultimate. So I do think that there is going to be a bit more freedom when it comes to being able to op on various different agents. Certainly with what Team Liquid are doing at the moment, with Nivera doing a lot of the secondary opping, Yampy still doing it on Omen. So I think that Mummay, even then, he was always a bit more passive than, say, a Waddell or anything like that. So I still think it fits, but just this team of Andbox doesn't particularly look like a force to be reckoned with. When you're looking at like EA and Android being on that team from way back when, it's just not the same level.
What is this? Alexander, Mada, Vice, Mummay, and Plix, right?
Exactly. So Vice is going to be IGLing. Mada probably stays as a duelist. Alexander's a duelist. So it does make sense actually that you would have Mummay come in potentially just to play the main controller, which he has that experience playing with Envy. And also when he was playing with Envy, he was playing that two roles that Envy was looking for, right? One person playing smokes, one person playing op. Now they find Ye, they find Marved, and then they fit as a pattern. Mummay, is he going to be crutched in a sense that if he still wants to op or whatever? I think that at this point he just still wants to keep playing. So to be able to fill in the shoes of somebody, to fill a roster and play a smoke player, controller player for the team, I think it's a good move because he's still a pretty good controller player. And to the point of what Ryan was saying, and we even saw it from Mitch and Tom Biz when they were casting, it's like, if you actually look at Counter-Strike, for example, you don't have this type of like flashy maneuvers to get away if you miss your op shot, right? So if you're able to play the op very similarly to the way that you come from, for example, Counter-Strike, where you post it up on angles, you could try to get away a little bit faster, then great, you could probably still do that.
Does this team have what it takes, do you guys think, to sort of make some waves?
You never know. It's not really a team that I'm expecting much from. If they come in and do relatively well in Challengers 4 of 2022 when they have to play twice as many seeding matches or whatever, all in Spike Rush. there's always a chance that they could do well, but I just think that we're seeing more organizations put a lot more money and they're starting to poach individuals as well. This is a team that has potential in long term, but short term, it's just a little bit more disappointing than the old Andbox roster. What could have been, right? Like, looking at when Poach was on the team and stuff like that. Speaking of Poach.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it just seems like they've had a pretty inauspicious start. I think they fell out in the group stages of the Winter Championships Open, I think. They went like 1 and 2, I want to say. So not with the, here, NSG Winter Championship Open 3, which was about a week ago. So early days again. But yeah, I think expectations are pretty measured here.
You'll be able to beat like a Gen G, Immortals, LG, and be in like that almost 1.5-1 thing in that scene. I'd probably see that with this roster, competitive with EG, for example, as well. But I don't foresee them making like top 4, top 6.
I'm just saying this is a team that like had El Diablo and still couldn't really like make deep runs. So
it's also an org that has a lot behind it, right? So it's like they could push it the same way. Yeah.
Speaking of orgs, with plenty of fucking backing. Thanks for that, Ryan. I'll knock them down. The guard has joined Valorant. This is Cronky Sports and Entertainment's esports division. You may recognize this color scheme. Yes, it's the Los Angeles Gladiators and Los Angeles Guerrillas ownership group. And now basically what they've done now, the Guard is the collective of their esports teams and also the name of their Valorant team. They aren't changing the names of the Guerrillas and the fucking Gladiators, but they fall in under the umbrella of the Guard. So
kind of like confusing. The version 1 Rocker, Minnesota kind of thing.
There is an example. There is an example that we can give, which is Andbox, right? Because they have New York Excelsior in Overwatch League and the New York Subliners, NRG as well with San Francisco Shock, Cloud9 with London Spitfire. The thing that I'm looking forward to this is the matchup between the Guard and Sentinels, because that is effectively, this is going to be lost on you two, I think, but that is effectively Wimbledon versus MK Dons. Like, two organizations are effectively the same thing at a given point, now going their separate ways. Because as far as I understand, Crunk, who owns Arsenal as well. That's
and the Los Angeles Rams football team.
Yeah. Lots of money to spend. They got Sentinels to basically run the Gladiators team, Gladiators Legion, and then there was a bit of a falling out, a bit of a split, and then that's where the Guard come from. So Sentinels versus the Guard might not be a close game in a Valorant server, but it's very interesting from two organizations' point of view because they effectively were twins, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, this is like a company that owns like radio stations, sports teams, venues, magazines, yada yada yada. So it's a lot of VC, right?
So like a overactive media or something.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it like that. And I mean, the team that they're building though is obviously interesting. So we have Sam, Valen, and Net so far. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't know who the coach of this particular team is. I'm curious as to. Can we? All right. Well,
was it rumored to be Mike's?
Well, who's scouting these players? You know what I mean? Because we know that Sam is obviously a good player. I mean, Valen was on that failed Complexity project.
Yes,
the Complexity project that went for fucking way too long. And then I don't know much about Net at all. I mean, wasn't he on the? Elysium,
I only know Net
I'll find out.
Yeah, so I met Net through like Mocking and Betrayed because Mocking at some point was doing a lot of like these tier 2 pugs, like the you know when BabyJ was doing like the Shmeek Cup, Mocking was doing like the same thing for like the tier 2 kind of thing, which was cool. So we saw like a good amount of players playing that, and Net was one of them, and he looked pretty damn correct to be honest. So
he was on squad, but I think he left as they got good.
Yeah,
like it was like July. As bad as it sounds, like he's done stuff for Andbox, Team Seam. So
I'm very much channeling the ignorant Valorant sort of casual in this.
Oh yeah, same.
This
like it's North America.
At least for me, what I like is that Net and Valen are like the young guns, right? Then he has some veterancy in Som, of course, with what he brings to the table from the other games. So like to follow that structure, to have maybe somebody that has it like that wisdom that could guide like the young fraggers into like a good direction and how to like be professional in your scene and bring that etiquette in terms of gaming is great in SOM. And then you have, I think Valiant was also IGLing, right, for the project for Complexity, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So he's going to be IGLing for this team. And then you have Net, who's, again, like one of those up-and-comers kind of thing that could potentially bring up a good core for this roster overall. So who are the next two? We got confirmation in the chat that Mike's actually not going to be coaching this team, so that's Sag. But
Exclusive.
I'm looking forward for the whole
Hot
roster to see what's going to
the
bring.
press. Yeah, I would love to see who the duelists are. I mean, they've already picked up a couple of young guns here. Maybe they just fill the team out with like crack zoomers.
It's a great moment to come out with this right now because LCQ just finished. Some rosters will start imploding, like Faze is one of them right now. So if you have that high backing and the high amount of money, man, if you could bring in a Corey, if you could bring in a BabyJ, if you want to, or if you could bring anybody else that's currently a free agent, or
I mean,
anybody
you can pay competitive salaries if you're the guard, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and we know that Sam was pretty impactful on. Yeah. At least, trust me. Yeah, I know they were looking for like CEO of their esports division for a time. They were sort of hiring that job. So
I declined. I had to do some Steel Series events, so I couldn't.
I'm just saying. I figured I learned a little bit about the job posting, and I realized that it was quite competitive. So anyway, let's talk about NIP. What the fuck is going on with this team? So okay, you know the old adage, come to Brazil. NIP have actually acquiesced, and huge update here. So with our recent move into China, okay, news to me. Their goal is to have esports teams in all relevant categories in their most relevant regions. So they think that EU is CSGO, they think League is China, and they think that Rainbow Six is Brazil. I guess they also think that Valorant is Brazil. That they are looking at expanding their operations in Latin America, including moving their fucking Valorant team to Brazil. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? From a business standpoint, probably I get it because the fan base for Attack FPS in Brazil is fucking huge. Like when you're watching the CS:GO major that just happened over the weekend, and you have a co-stream from Goals that has like at least 150,000 people watching, and every time he's streaming, he's always getting like X amount of people. That's like a minimum of like 30 to 60K, whatever it is. And then just the fan base in Brazil in general just like loves Attack FPS, which is why you still have like veterans that kind of like dropped off in the competitive scene, in my eyes, like Fallen and Cold Zero, but could still play in top.
They're rumored to be forming another team, by the way.
And there you go. And then you'll have the fan base that still follows that, which is, and Rainbow Six has been fucking huge as well for Latin America, actually, because even if you're looking at Rainbow Six, if I'm not mistaken, like NIP and Faze and Liquid have Brazilian teams, if I'm not mistaken, and they've they've been very competitive in the scene and make it into the grand finals as well. So I think the scene grows pretty well for Attack FPS. I
think the Immortals MIBR experiment was pretty successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside of some misdemeanors by players on that roster, it seemed like, which I just felt it was like teething, a very cultural collision there. But I think that's fine. Also, Brazil gets like a bajillion fucking slots for like Imagine's pointing out, a bajillion slots for champions anyway. So
yeah,
you know, compared to the performance of their rosters. Internationally, they have an extremely disproportionately high amount of slots in champions. I'm just saying. And of course, so what the fuck? Okay, can someone tell me what the fuck is then happening with Dimasic? And what is his deal?
No
idea. We get this tweet that is like, I don't understand this at all. So there's an interesting situation, and I don't want to talk about much, but I'm an NIP player, so I'm still contracted NIP. I guess motherfucker doesn't want to live in Brazil. What? What the fuck's going on here?
All the players, I think, are like they're not. They effectively want people to buy out players like JD.
Yeah.
So part of me's not even part of me. Fuck Nip. They can get out of the MEA. They've shut the bed on multiple occasions. They fucked over players on multiple occasions with short-term contracts ever since the closed beta. Fucked around with the fucking Paladins players, and then they let the players on their current roster know the day of that they're dropping them and moving to Brazil. So fuck them. They can go. I don't give a shit.
Unreal.
I don't want them in my region because all they've done is make things worse. Like
the day off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, NIP. Fuck you guys, man. All right. So
I love the players. I love the team, but like the org hasn't got a good track record of being in the MEA. So let those players be on better organizations.
I mean, but the best part is they're trying to shop them though. They're keeping them contracted. What are they going to fucking do with them? Sit them at home in Europe, make them unable to play for any other teams until they get bought out or their contracts expire?
Yep.
Is that really how this is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case with all of the players other than Emil, who was the coach, was just left open. But now is kind of a shit time to find work right now because a lot of the teams are sorted and ready to go on to the next year. I don't really think we're going to see a lot of roster moves for EMEA from the looks of it. So you've got like Mike's, Tanny, now Emil all sat with no opportunity for 2022, at least to begin with.
Yeah.
Unless
That's
Mike
bizarre.
joins Andbox. Come on, Andbox, pick him up. But to think back about the NIP stuff too, going to Brazil, even if you're looking from a business standpoint, like when we had a Brazilian coach come on to our show, he was saying like the salaries that you get for a professional player in Valorant is not even that high monthly, right? So I think
some of them are pretty inflated, I think, but in Brazil,
but the majority, I think the average, you're getting only like $500-600 US a month or something like that. So $500-600 US a month for these professional players in Valorant in Brazil, while
Brazil, right?
Yeah, exactly, for Brazil. So if you're going to pick up a Brazilian roster, you're not going to pay them much. You're going to get a lot of following around it, a lot of fan base around it too. So even if you shit the bed at the international scene for VCT, you're still going to look pretty good in your region with the amount of potential money you're going to make in there.
Yeah, it's worthwhile for them. Like, I understand the decision wholheartedly. It's just...
Why? Yeah. Why?
There's a way
give
to
their
go
players
about
any
it.
Warning. I hate that. It's so
That,
fucking
yes.
scummy.
That is a little grimy. I will agree to that.
Okay.
Of
Well,
course.
good luck, NIP, I guess. Yeah, tell me how Belo Horizonte is, motherfuckers. All right, let's talk about FaZe Clan. Obviously, this team just doesn't seem to be able to find their feet. They don't seem to be able to find their feet. There you go. BabyJ is now no longer with FaZe Clan. Obviously, spends a stint with them as he moves on to the Sentinel role, and Zachary moves on to more of an initiator role. So no good is BabyJ on this team. And I mean, look, fair enough, right? I think this team has struggled to fill the gap that Marv left from the team and to try and sort of adjust around that. I'm now with even more recent news, of course, about, like Rawkus' departure, which is, we don't have necessarily in this segment, but it's worth bringing it out. That's, two players leaving this team. It doesn't look good, fam. It doesn't look good at all.
Someone was, so when I was streaming yesterday, somebody told me in my chat that apparently BabyJ said on stream even that when he was playing with the team, he felt like nobody really wanted to try to really win. So maybe FaZe was already on its way out as a team already in terms of like, yeah, we've reached our limit and it's, we've had a good run and it's time for us to part ways and find our successes somewhere else, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure if you've seen all the videos and how these guys hang out, I'm sure they all love each other, but they also have a love to win. So if now it's to go their own separate ways and find a new home, then I think it was long overdue. Everybody was waiting for that at the same time, and it's nice that it's now. I just hope that every single one of them will be able to find a home going into the next event.
I mean, we can talk about the Rawkus stuff here, I guess. I found it really interesting that this actually happened because, I know that so many of these Valorant players, like, it's really hard for them to respect a coach. And like Sentinels, I would have thought would have had the greatest difficulty respecting anyone to come in and sort of coach them, or enough, right? To, an analyst is a different story. We'll probably talk about it in our roundtable with our esteemed coaches a little bit later on here, but I mean, it definitely surprised me. It was a surprising decision. Oh yeah. All right. You know what? We'll Dreams here in the Discord. We'll fucking hold on that one. We'll talk to our coaches about it as a group. I think.
Put him back in his box. He's
yeah.
Get in there. I didn't turn the crane yet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll catch up with Dream and everybody in the next segment. We'll quickly finish this off though. So FaZe, don't know what the fuck's going on. To be honest with you, JDM, Trippy, doesn't matter who it is. It just doesn't seem like this team has what it takes. So fair enough. I can do what you have to do. Your boy Dre, obviously of Luminosity and previously 100 Thieves fame, has announced that he is now a restricted free agent. Obviously, the duelist on this team for the most part in the past now saying he's looking to play flex and smokes.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah, going back to what he played in the past, right? When he was playing with High Grounds and 100 Thieves, when we saw him play a lot of Omen, from time to time would play a Raze, from time to time play a Phoenix in High Ground as well. So that's why he's able to flex, but I think you're finding that level of comfort now playing in as a main smoker. I don't know if he wants to get away from the Jet role because of all the criticism that he's gotten during the LCQ, which I don't think he should beat himself up upon because, you know, he's still a pretty decent Jet player. But I definitely do see the value that he could bring as a controller player too. So I think it's going to work out well. I think he's still going to be a great addition to anybody else. I think it's just LG in general is still trying to find like those two duelists that would really help out that organization as a whole if they're going to keep, for example, a Proto and Dazzle and Moose in there, right? So who's our two guys if you're looking at that roster? Who's going to be, or is Dazzle going to stay as a Sova, or is Moose going to play Sova? Then you just need like that another flex player, another duelist to come into the roster.
I wonder if they pick up like a BabyJ on this team.
That'd be kind of sweet. That'd be kind of sweet.
Yeah, I mean, like it's pointed out in chat by Lizard Man, and Dre was like way back. He was an Omen player, right?
Yes,
so,
exactly.
But I mean, in the last like 3-4 months, he's played nothing but duelist on that Luminosity team. I'm surprised.
Reyna and Jet, yeah.
Yeah, and a bit of Raze as well. So
yeah,
I mean okay. Well, yeah, good luck to Dre. I'm not really sure where he's looking ahead here, but again, this is the time I think to be into that restricted free agency. There are still a lot of teams in NA that are far from finalized, and then there's a lot of mixing and matching going on here. All right, so before we get onto our roundtable, let's quickly talk about Cned's situation here, because obviously there's a bit of a furor in the Turkish community. I think that was discussed last week, and Mitch had his opinions about that one. So. There's a lot of misinformation regarding Cned's supposed involvement in the bit scam. So, from what I can tell, Cned just got donated some of the bits, but there was no collusion from him necessarily. Just he received bits, and that was that.
Yeah,
is that's the gist of this? I think.
Yeah, the last sentence though. We recommend that people use a variety of sources for their information, as well as making sure to fact check any. It basically might as well have put "fuck you" up comma at the end of it, right? Like that was the whole vibe from them. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was a weird situation. Cned probably shouldn't have said anything at all because he's obviously involved in it somewhat because his brother's heavily involved in it, right? So it's
right.
It's easy to make that link, and if people don't look into it too much, they just see Cned involved, they're going to assume that he's like the godfather of this kind of stuff just because that's how people work.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong as far as I could tell. I just wouldn't have spoken up. I mean, to be fair, like the clickbait headlines kind of made my blood boil, but we've discussed that at length. And I mean, the other Mitch, he gave his 2 cents on that, and I think he was pretty covered all the bases there. No worries about that one. Let's fucking move on. Let's get to a part of the show that I've been looking forward to ever since I realized we're going to do it. Nice one, Van Silly. This was his idea. We obviously
I don't do shit
on this show. We sort of sit here and we bring people in from different regions. We obviously try and discuss the happenings in Valorant. But this week, a little bit quieter as far as the news is concerned, and a great opportunity to pick some of the brains of some of the brightest minds behind Valorant in the North American region specifically. So without further ado, would love to welcome to the show Frod, Psycho, and Dream, all of course coaches in the NA region. We're going to go down the line really quickly, guys, and then we're just going to fucking throw some questions at you, Frod. Great to have you back on the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, doing good, man. How about you?
Not too shabby at all, gentlemen. Yeah, can't wait to chum the waters. Yeah, with some thoughts from you guys. Dream, what's up? You're like a Jack in the Box. He's fucking Popeye out there, bro. Good to have you back.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, as you could tell.
And Don, lastly, great to have you back on the show, man. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, man. It's good to see you guys again. Good seeing Ben Silly after seeing you in LA recently.
Yeah, man. Likewise. How was Disneyland?
Oh, it was fantastic. I hurt my leg walking around so much, but other than that, it was beautiful.
This is like a train wrecks podcast. I just realized as well with the amount of people here.
Oh yeah, the traffic's gonna get fucked up, but I think that's all right. I think the less that I talk, the better. As is probably often the case if you're depending on who you ask. But let's start with this first one, guys. Obviously, for those that don't know, of course, Frod is currently coaching on Knights, of course, Psycho with Xset, and then Dream, of course,
KCP Pioneers.
KCP, excuse me, Pioneers, not Knights. I got the icons fucking mixed up. The other one, blood. Sorry.
You're good.
Let's talk about this tweet from Psycho, which I found really interesting. And this has actually been something that we have seen in many esports, right? A lot of poaching going on right now. You feel like you want to start to expose teams and stuff for their shade tactics. Now, that's not what we're asking you to do necessarily, but you obviously point out here, Don, that, Xset players aren't going anywhere. Obviously, there's a lot of loyalty build up within that sort of brand. But let's talk about this poaching and sort of, how often do you guys see it occur? And like, is there an appropriate way to sort of approach a player? Because so often I see like it happens in League of Legends all the time, right? Like fucking Ocelot seems to get accused of it all the time. This sort of tampering with players.
He's doing it again in G2, isn't he? He wants to poach the players from Giants right now.
He just fucking says it. He's like, I don't care. I have money. But, how does like a tier 2 team become a tier 1 team without just becoming a fucking farm team for top organizations? Like, we'll start with you, Don. I guess we can talk about it because you've really built this brand in Valorant, from the ground up, and obviously both Dream and Frod are experiencing similar things here. So, it's quite treacherous. How do you build up one of these teams without just getting your fucking players stolen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the acceptable method, so to speak, of approaching players is you're supposed to approach the org and their agent and see if they're available. That's pretty much step one. A lot of teams tend to skip that step these days, right? And it's something that I myself have even been, reprimanded for a little bit. Like, hey, don't reach out to this guy. You got to reach out to me first. Oh, my bad. Okay, no problem. But that's really the matter of it, right? Like, you can't really stop players from talking to other players, saying, "Hey, man, like, what's your deal? What you got going on? Would you ever come, play with me sometime?" It happens all the time. Happens in the NBA. Happens in real sports or traditional sports, rather. But the proper way to do that is to approach the org and just see if they're available in general. And in our instance, like we built a really good system over the last year with really good players. The players are happy to be here. They don't want to go anywhere. And that's why they reach out to me when things like this happen. But you just have some orgs right now who are directly, with their management reaching out to these players, trying to coerce them or, offer them whatever it may be to come over to the promised land. And it's just something that I'm just tired of seeing, right? Because it's, these people know that it's not acceptable to do this. They've been in the industry for a while. They're on these big name orgs with all this money. They know how things are supposed to be properly done, and they're just totally disregarding it.
And I even want to divert that over to Danny, because Danny, you yourself with KCP, after what happened with Beast Coast, and you're forming up your team. I think JMO was in there. Then we also had Odorous, and then things were looking pretty good with KCP. And you seem to have gone through this type of like position where KCP continues to have to sort of like rebuild from the ground up ever since the team came together. Did you go through the same type of like issues that Psycho went, for example, where it's just like players and orgs just talking to your players in DMs, or was there a better procedure that did go about between these orgs and KCP that you were made aware of, and at least nothing came to us as a surprise?
No, not really. I mean, I agree with him completely. I think that there should be a proper way about doing things. I was a player as well in my time, so like I understand that players do talk, but I think once it gets to a certain point that it becomes more serious of like actually wanting to get it done, and understanding that both have contracts and stuff, like there's got to be that next step that the channels have to be like, everything has to be done properly. So even just being in my situation, like I think it's like being on like it's like an organization trying to find these young talent, like not just one or two, but like the majority, build cores around like the team is like maybe a little different than like one player, two players trying to get poached from an organization, like a big organization with a big name. It's like we're trying to establish a name for ourselves. So it kind of puts like some roadblocks here and there, but I kind of take on that challenge simply because like I've like understood that's kind of how it is, right? Like it's an unfortunate situation, but it's something that I think that you can't really avoid. You just kind of have to hope that we can educate people on how to do it better, and managers and people like ourselves that are coaches can maybe get more involved in that way. We can have those conversations if that has to be done. That way players don't get involved in some of those, at least when it gets to a further step. But I mean, like I said, in my situation, I feel like it's almost par for the course. Unfortunately, even though I don't like it, I don't like selling having the players get sold or anything like that.
I mean, it's one thing trying to scout this young and upcoming talent, right? But how the fuck do you keep them? Because I think this is, I don't know if you can speak to the stream, but or because obviously all of you are operating teams right now that have really talented individuals of them with differing levels of reputation. But one thing that I think unites you all is that you have crack players on your team. So, how do you go from being maybe a tier 2 team to actually getting yourself into a position where you can maintain a tier 1 roster and not have everyone poached away? Like what do you need to I guess what do you need to instigate in the team to sort of keep those players, ensure that loyalty, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I definitely think that it does have to come from like the players or the org believing in it, because just like what both of these guys have said, it's hard to actually make sure that this doesn't happen at all. There's like natural conversations players have, I don't think are really harmful. Like, hey, like, you're my friend, or we've been on a team before. I think you're really good. Like, would you be interested? And it's just small conversations, whatever, that's fine. Eventually you need to get agents and orgs and the people that sign the paperwork involved, right? But it does happen, just like Psycho was saying, it happens in the NBA, despite there being league rules, despite there being players association rules, to make sure that I don't try and call anyone out specific in our esport. Carlos does do that in G2 and the LEC, like very famously. And it's not like you can even if you're like another org in the LEC, it's not like you can be like, well, we're just going to refuse to do anything with G2 now. That's not really a viable way to like do your own like punishment or anything like that. So it really does have to come from, the players not wanting to get poached. And that's going to be primarily through building up a team identity or a team culture that players want to be a part of, that they believe that they can get to the next level, and that they're going to be able to get to where they want with that particular team more than going to another team. And I can say that my experience so far in Valorant has been better as far as poaching and kind of player collusion and stuff than what was happening even in the Overwatch League. That stuff was real rough in the Overwatch League. We've had a few players with trials on our team, and I'm pretty sure everyone reached out either directly to the player's agent or directly to the org very early in the process, and it was handled pretty responsibly. At least that's my direct experience. Obviously, that's a limited sample size, but I can say that in my experience in Overwatch, it was a rampant issue, and the only time that's not a problem is when you're on a winning team or a team with a culture that you don't want to leave, right? Who wasn't getting poached? The SF Shock, right? No.
Sure.
So that's really the way that you can avoid that stuff. You either have that identity that everyone really buys into, that team culture, everyone's happy to be there, or you're just winning, so people don't want to leave. Otherwise, you're just going to have to deal with it, I think.
It's that simple. Just win, forehead. But I mean, that's something that I think is going to be very interesting with stuff like Game Changers going forward, because obviously it's happened in EMEA. There was a big movement of orgs getting involved, G2, with a buyout as well on players like Mummay. I imagine like going into next year, because of the rumored setup, it being more Game Changers events, more of a circuit, more than just the standalone events that we've been seeing. I got to imagine that's interesting because it's, players being valued in that sense, but also a lot of players at the very least not experienced with dealing that kind of thing when some big orgs come knocking, and in both NA and EMEA. So I wonder what your thoughts were for 2022 for the game changer scene overall, and if it's going to be good or bad for the scene, with a lot of orgs basically wanting to invest and pick up a team, and by doing that they'd have to piling in tremendous players.
I mean, obviously, the more orgs that get involved, the more investment there is. I think that is going to be good in the long term. I think in the short term, there could be some players or some staff on some smaller orgs that get shafted, to be honest. And that's just going to happen anytime a lot of investment comes into the scene. People with a lot of money are going to come in and want to, throw it on the table and use that as leverage, which is just a part of the process. But I do think that that overall, it's obviously going to be a good thing, and I think we are going to see roster changes and buyouts and a lot of stuff going into next year. I know obviously a lot more about what's going on in NA for Game Changers than I do for EMEA, but there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff happening in NA in that regard. And yeah, I mean, I think really the only thing you can do if you're an org that has a player signed that, you know, it is like a game changers team that's trying to, you know, get up maybe to our level, try and compete maybe with us, but isn't already at that level. Either everyone really buys in, or you just have ridiculous contract clauses and their buyouts are like $1 million, right? That's literally those are your options. And if you go with the second one, players are going to be mad. Like if they're like, I want to be able to go play on this team, I think this is a better opportunity for me, it's a better fit, whatever. If you're holding them hostage, that is not good for your success, right? Yeah. So it really does become a balancing act, and you are going to have to take some punches, I think, if you're not one of the orgs that's willing to just shell out infinite amounts of money. That's just kind of going to happen.
And that's the thing too. To piggyback on that question though, and I'll divert this over to Danny, and whoever wants to interject, please do as well. You know, when it comes down to like new orgs trying to get into the scene, any scene, whether it's Valorant, Apex, or whatever the fuck, right? If you're like a tier 2 team or like a pug team or a team that's stuck together and is looking to get signed, usually you have that coach / manager that's able to be there and help out. But a lot of these moments from what I'm seeing sometimes is when these teams get picked up, the coach / manager usually gets omitted into all of these deals. So how do you make sure that you're like following into this? How do you fall into the plan that you're also like an important piece into the whole core that's potentially going to get picked up by an org? And how do you sell yourself in that way too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty tough. Like in this scene, like you can kind of like just even talk about what we were like before. Like loyalty is one of the biggest things to be able to try and keep players around, like despite all the buyouts. Like imagine being in a free agent environment where, I mean, it's like you don't have buyouts, right? It just takes a simple conversation and someone could just hop on over. I mean, even like in the situation that we're in right now in the Pioneers, like we wanted this rebuild, right? So we're actively trying to pursue some more talented free agents out there and just trying to have conversations, build loyalty with them and whatnot. And you know, I think that that's what we're trying to figure out right now. And I think that, you know, we're trying to navigate those waters with these players that we're looking for, eyeing, and trying to get them, you know, like stay focused on wanting to be here. But I mean, there's really not that much that you could do. Yeah. I mean, simply, it's just like all these basically players, like they want to have these opportunities. And like as a coach, like you don't want to deny them those opportunities. So you kind of want them to, you know, take potentially them if especially if they view it as something that they want to take, you know, like you don't want to deny someone that opportunity. So if they're really wanting that, I think it's only in their best interest to try and, you know, take an opportunity like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Back when I was coaching Genesis, you know, some of those players were getting offers to tier 1 teams, you know, not the entire team at once, but just individuals, right? And you just got to be happy for those guys. You know, you're a free agent roster. The idea of being a free agent roster is to get everybody signed, whether that's one at a time or all together. It is unfortunate that a lot of times some of these unsigned teams will come in and an org will say, okay, we want to pick up this team. We already have a coach and a manager and we're just looking for players. And a lot of times
you're
coaches get admitted. Yeah, then you're fucked, right? Like, what are you going to do about that? But you, like Danny was saying, you just got to be happy for your guys at that point because you have done your job, right? And by doing your job and getting your players developed and signed to an org, you're establishing your own resume of, I can get these players developed, I can get them signed to a team, I can make them better, and that will help you get signed in the future.
Yeah, I think in general, like especially as staff in esports, a lot of it is just player recommendation and player advocacy. Is if you want to get, like, let's say a core of a team or an entire team is getting signed, the only way you're going with them is if the players are like, we want this person to come with us, we feel strongly about that. That's it. And even if you're, you know, people are getting signed piecemeal and going to different teams, if those people like had a good time working with you and have good things to say about you, they're going to be advocating if there need to be changes in their own staff down the line, your name will come up, or when they're talking to players that they know that are like, oh, we're looking to add staff or change staff or whatever, your name comes up. And as people get signed to tier 1 rosters, you have more voices around the scene that can advocate for you. But that's really the best you can hope for.
It's a long game.
Yeah, for real.
So let's do it. Let's talk about this, guys. Recent news, we found that Sentinels have finally gone for a coach. Now, to my understanding, there's been no front-facing coach on that team at all up until this point. At least nothing solid. You know, listen, Dream, you coached Shane. Yeah, you know, you obviously were around him when he was a player in Overwatch. Now obviously you went to Valorant. Now he's coaching Sentinels. This is such an interesting one, I think, because obviously in many cases there weren't many ex-pros to coach teams in the past. We may be starting to get our first wave of retirements here from Valorant. I'd love to know your thoughts, guys. Let's just go around and talk about this because you know, I don't necessarily know if, you know, we have a proven quantity here as a coach in terms of the skill set, the unique skill set the coach requires. Have at you.
Yeah, I mean, just to briefly say something too, like when I was doing a little bit of management work before I started getting into coaching, I think this was probably one of the things that actually inspired me to want to be a coach is when I was hanging around the Faze Overwatch team, kind of when I guess our coach got released at the time, and Faze wanted me to go and coach a little bit, and that's when we had Rawkus and Zoms on the team at the same time with a bunch of other talented players, and I always thought that Rawkus was a very good player. Rawkus always had that kind of like IGL mindset. It always kind of seemed. So I think that you know, he would have like the right strategic element to be able to do some of these things. Like he's been around the esports scene a little while. Like he's experienced success in as a player individually. So I think that he has a lot of tools, in my opinion, to like be a successful coach, especially in esports, where I think a lot of players like especially if you're like very talented players, and Sentinels is a very good team that has, you know, obviously won a bunch. I think they want to be able to be around coaches that like they respect, or maybe were a player before or something like that. So I think in this case, Rawkus would be a pretty good fit simply because of relationships with like Zoms and others and his experience and just playing and stuff. So kind of from my perspective, I think it makes a little bit of sense, but you know, I'm curious to see how he does, which I think he'd do a good job.
Yeah, I think the one thing I wanted to ask really is, it's very easy to sort of shout cronyism on something like this, whereas it makes sense, I think, from Sentinel's perspective, where it feels that Rawkus is more helping out Shazam do his thing as opposed to a typical coach coming into a roster, right? So I kind of wanted to just ask the very full frontal question of like, how much of being a coach and finding a team is meritocracy, and how much of it is based on who you know and the networking aspect of it? Obviously, both are important, but sometimes it does feel that the networking side of it is more important than the actual experience, shall we say? Maybe not specific to Rawkus, but in other experiences that we've had in the past as well.
I mean, for sure, having connections, knowing people, networking is just incredibly important in esports in general, no matter the role, in my opinion. But especially for something like a staff role, it's hard to be able to see when you're watching a team play in the server if their coach is a good coach or not. Like, how do you know that? It's not the same as watching a player pop off and be like, yo, this guy is carrying. Clearly he is good, right? And it's like even less so than like, okay, in an IGL, you can see some of the calls they're making. You can see some evidence of good IGLing, but a lot of that you don't know unless you're hearing the comms, right? So with coaching, a lot of it is based on, hey, I've worked with this person, they are competent. Or I worked with this person, and even though the team did well, all they really did was schedule our scrims and record them in a YouTube playlist, and that's like all they did, right? So it's just genuinely hard to tell. So it is going to come down to a lot of, do you know this person? Do you trust this person? And how do you interface with this person? And I do think that there's also, what goes into that is like there's different, obviously, styles of coaches that are needed for different teams. And like, for example, my team is a team that is looking to make large improvements in like a lot of different areas, right? So we would need to have a very different approach as a coaching staff than to coaching a team like Sentinels, where they are not worried about relearning a bunch of stuff or creating new systems or new structures. They're worried about getting that extra 5% out of everyone, getting that extra efficiency, making sure everything is streamlined, having like criticisms be able to be communicated cleanly and fixed, like stuff be fixed and adjusted immediately. And I think that's something that in this specific case, that is something that would fit Rawkus very well. He did do basically like secondary IGLing for us on Outlaws, and Overwatch IGLing is insane. That shit is crazy.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Everything's just so fast paced, and there's like a million things going on at once, and all this stuff. But he also is someone that's good at like knowing player dynamics and like how people are interacting in the team, and he is like friends with basically everyone on that roster, and they do know him and they do respect him, right? And that is a very big part of when you're a really good, already successful team. You want someone that's going to show up and have their attitude be, hey, I'm not here to teach you how to play the game, I'm here to like help you be more efficient and help the system work better. And that's the kind of coach Sentinels needs, and I think that's the kind of coach that Rawkus can
feels
be.
like anything less than an ex-pro would not have remotely cut it. I just can't imagine Shaz letting any Tom, Dick, and Harry into the fucking inner sanctum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak to that, but I that would be my assumption as well, right?
Just
one
from-
thing that you brought
sorry,
up
go ahead.
real quick, actually, Dream, like what I really liked was like how you approach it from your perspective. Like Sicko Fraud, like what do you bring to the table as coaches? Because I imagine all three of you are going to have different answers, and I imagine a lot of people just expect you to be writing the playbook, effectively telling the pros what to do. So I'm curious on how your styles differ from each other.
I think something we talked about last time I was on the show is that just coaches in general wear different hats at different times on different teams. Every team needs something different. Your job as a coach is not necessarily to be the strategist. Your job is not necessarily to be the leader. Your job is to come in and make the team better. And everybody has a different approach on how to do that. And every team has a different requirement on what will necessarily make them better faster, right? So like in my case, my role on Xset is really just being the leader of the team, directing the practices, directing what we're doing at any given point in time. Before Rory Def came in, I was crafting a lot of the playbook. I was maintaining a playbook and making sure the players memorized the strats, and we were set up for success on match day. But ever since I brought Rory in, I've kind of pulled back on that and allowed him to kind of take over the strategy aspect of it. I think a team like Sentinels, Shaz has said multiple times in interviews that he's really looking for an ex-player, somebody who kind of understands the game at a player level. So it's really not a surprise for me to see someone like Rawkus going over. I know Shaz has approached other players in the past trying to get them to come over to coaching. So I'm sure it's a similar situation, right? And I don't think that he wants Rawkus to come in and say, here's my Rawkus playbook and you guys learn it, right? Like I don't think Sentinels want that to happen. Sentinels want someone to come in and learn their playbook, learn how Shaz runs things, lets Shaz continue to be the leader, but then has Rawkus there to assist him on the things that he just doesn't have time as a player to do, whether that be analyzing teams or, just kind of managing the team on that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know if there's like a lot of players or even coaches that want their coach to be like the main like strategic input. It's very tough a lot of times, and like even my belief, for example, is I think that the team overall should construct the strategies, the team comms, things like that. I mean, I think like different play styles, personalities, and each player translates to something different in the game that you can't just like copy and paste from something else that someone's doing. So I think that's why I think everyone's input in strategies is very important. Now, like in my case, obviously, like I have to be like the leader of it, construct the practices, book the schedules, do the VODs, like kind of like be a jack of all trades, master of none, because you never really know at what point in time you kind of have to do a little bit more. But I think directing the traffic and especially when it comes to strategic side, if you have IGLs that have a good mind and a good understanding of the game, is just more trying to get everyone's voice heard and making sure that everyone has like proper input in growing the strategic side of the team, because there's so much that goes on. Meta shift constantly, new maps every couple months, new agents. It's like you need different inputs and all the time. So I think that's something that's very important to do, and being able to like decipher all of that, and then ask the right questions, start the right conversations. It's, I think in a good leader knows when to lead and when not to lead. So I think in these cases, it's more of like let your guys and give them the right examples. And then when they kind of need someone to be that leader figure in those moments, and you kind of get in there and take care of all that for them.
So this is a great time to maybe ask this question. We talk about coaches having to sort of wear a lot of hats. I think there are probably a lot of people that wonder, what is going on under the hood in the coaching role, especially because it's a little bit hard to bring that to the forefront, because frankly, you guys aren't the ones they stick a mic in front of when you win. I wish they did it more, but if we could distill the key skill set of a coach in Valorant to a few different things, I want to try that now, especially for those who wonder what it kind of takes. I know there's a lot of hats to wear, but we can speak generally. I'm quite happy. We can start with you, Don, if you like, to talk about like what are the broad skill set things that you really want to try and either have nailed down or be working towards if you want to be an effective coach in a scene like the Valorant one.
I think first and foremost, the most important skill is just leadership. If you're going to come in and help a team get better, and you have a plan on how to do that, whether that's strategically or kind of in a sports psychologist kind of way where you're managing personnel, like the primary thing is you need to get people to listen to you. And in order to get people to listen to you, you don't come in and say, I'm in charge, you listen to me. You have to inspire them to want to listen to you. And that's really what a good leader is someone who can come in and kind of corral people around him and uh, get them on the same page and get them focused on the same objective and achieving the same goals, right? So I think leadership is key. Having a good understanding of the game strategically is also key, I'm sure. Some teams need more strategic leadership than others. Like Danny was saying, I'm very similar with how that goes as far as just making sure, we have a lot of really smart people on the team, BCJ, Jordan, even Zach, who's 16, has a really sharp eye and keen understanding of the game. And it's really important that you have all of their voices heard and have a really good discussion about how we want to approach things as a team, and then come to a consensus of how we want to approach any given situation, right? So being able to kind of conduct those discussions, manage personnel, manage personalities, and lead them in the direction that you want them to go. I think that's the biggest key as far as if you want to be a coach in an esport or in sports in general, that's what you need to be able to do.
What do you guys think? Does this line up with your idea of what it takes to be a coach? Can you add to this maybe, or would you subtract from it?
I mean, definitely for me, I agree basically on all fronts that those are very important elements of coaching. I would also say that being able to have that underlying structure, right? Whatever that, looks like for your team, what your practices need to look like, whatever your, if you have a strap book, a black book, like what is the best way to organize that for your players, depending on how people engage with things. Being a really good communicator is super important because a lot of times the issues that do arise in teams is people not necessarily being good at communicating in the moment what's going on. So being able to help people like get better at that or bridge those gaps is really, really important. And just like each team needs different things and is a different situation, players are like that too, right? So even if your position in the team is like you are, a really strong leadership figure, or you're more of like supplementing the main IGL who does most of the leadership in the team, there are also other players where the way that they're going to respond to feedback, like when you need to push someone to get that extra 5 or 10%, some people respond way better to that, tough love sort of like fix your shit type of attitude. And some people respond a lot more to you're making good progress, focus on, the positives and keep working, or like, hey, this hasn't been working, let's reevaluate, let's have a conversation about it, right? So also being able to identify that.
Are you different people to different players in a sense? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you just have to like think about who you're talking to and then like modulate your approach as a coach based on certainly the player you're trying to
Yeah, to a certain extent, absolutely. I mean, I think you're not trying to like transform and like be different people all the time, right? You still want to be genuine and be who the team needs, right? Which is ultimately you, right? You don't want to, I don't know, try and change things too much or act like a, totally different person when you're interacting with different players. But you do have to cater the way you communicate, the way your feedback works, and your plans for improvement differently for different players, right? Like some players are way better at coming up with their strats or their setups on site or new quirky ways to use util on their own, and you're just like, yeah, keep throwing as much of that at me as possible, right? And then other players, that's not the natural thing that is their skill set, and you like talk to them about that and like, hey, like watch some VODs, try and find out what's going on. Other people are just like VOD fiends, watch it, on their own while, maybe they don't play as much ranked, and, you need to encourage them in that way. So yeah, I think you do have to cater it to the player, but ultimately you still have to be genuine to who you are as a person. Like you're with these players in such an intense environment for so many hours. Like people know when you're like being fake or trying to be manipulative,
Yeah.
right? You do have to fit to what they need, but you still have to be genuine.
Yeah, and what I want to say too, because like that kind of touches on what I would have said as well. Like for me, I like to give a lot of like individual type lessons as well to the player, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into, I think, like what I do, like outside of practice, where I try and maybe like we do watch VODs as a team, but I will sometimes watch VODs with players individually and give them advice and tips on their game as well. So there's like an element of, you know, I believe that we have to kind of play the game. You know, like obviously I have a CS background, but I'm coaching Valorant. So I believe that I have to play Valorant. I have to stay active in it and, you know, try and give lessons individually if I see a player needs working on. So for me, if, you know, I have to have a conversation with my player who is an opper or one who's maybe our anchor or one who's our IGL, like a lot of conversations are completely different. And sometimes you don't need to have those conversations in front of the team, or, you know, sometimes if you want to hammer home like some certain thing that he needs to work on or something, like you don't necessarily want to call that individual out or have those conversations in front of a team setting either. So there's like a lot of elements of having these lessons kind of catered to the player, but it's not really like about their personality. At least in my case, a lot of it is more on their skill set individually, where I try and get them to like be a little bit better from that side of it. You know, I do believe that if you like, the best self that you can bring to the team will only help improve the team overall. So that's kind of where I try and hammer home that side of it. So players take a little bit more pride in their preparation, their skill set, and how they approach themselves to the side of it as well. Like that's separate from the strategic side and more alongside of like their individuality, just purely in the game, you know?
So
I'm enjoying, there's some unique colors, I think, in all of you that are coming out as we sort of hear you sort of talk a little bit about this stuff, which is, I think, great. Sorry, Vance.
No, I was gonna say at least one thing in common though is that, you know, every single one of these guys watches VODs just like we do, which is fucking
Make
great.
sure you fucking watch VODs.
But I do agree with everybody's perspective at the same time, and even like when Don was talking about, you know, different, like you guys all have to wear different hats. I think Danny, you went through the same thing when you were in T1 as well. Not only going from the strategic point of view, but also like psychological when you had to like deal with which shit that was going behind the scenes as well. So, you know, it kind of makes you guys as coaches really the unsung heroes of these teams that doesn't really get that recognition right now. And this is where I kind of want to see like switch gears too. Is I feel that right now with the news that came out like last week with the CS:GO Major, for example, with these new rules that came out in terms of like coaches not being able to celebrate behind their players, you're kind of like again being restricted as to like what a coach could do. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background for those that are listening and watching right now, is that Valve came out with a rule where now players cannot even say nice during the matches when they're winning rounds. They can't clap, they can't touch their players because they think that these could be signals and signs that could indicate that they have some sort of information that the other team doesn't have. Kind of like you know, the Houston Astros with the garbage cans last year in the World Series. I think that's something similar to that. So now because of that, the coaches are just sitting there. So first off, I want to bring up that question as to let's say with you here, Don, because you with Xset with the LCQ that just happened, right? And even with Masters 1 and 2, for all three of you, if you've been watching online, the coaches are actually not standing behind the players. You're actually on the sidelines in the first place with a talk box that gets muted while the matches are live, and you only get to speak when the timeouts are coming out. So I want to know, like, what's the experience been like for you not being able to be behind your players, and if that affects, like, your team morale, yourself as a coach not being able to be there to like scream nice with them.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating having to deal with. You know, CS:GO used to be a lot better about it. I know they've been changing a lot of their rules lately. Thanks, Hunden, you fucking asshole. Other than that,
cheers.
Other than that, like with Valorant, I know it's, you know, Riot ran the League of Legends events. I know coaching in League of Legends is a little bit different than an FPS tac shooter.
Yes.
But it's just frustrating, right? Like when they tell you, hey, you're in this big online event that you qualified for, and now you have to sit in another room entirely. You can't talk to the players. You can only talk to them during timeouts. You know, we've had tournaments where the timeout functionality was broken and I wasn't even able to call a timeout. So I'm like typing in chat, like hitting pause, like trying to figure out what the hell is going on, right? You know, it's not like I want to be able to IGL my team, right, from the coach spec slot. I know some CS teams were doing that back in the day. That's not what I want from us. I just want to be able to kind of, like you said, keep the morale up, have a voice in the conversation, and give input when needed. And it's really hard to do that with the current rule set. Like we showed up to LCQ, and after seeing the Masters, what was it, Masters Berlin stage, where they had the coaches kind of like they were on the stage, but they were in the back, right? It was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit better. At least they're kind of on the stage. And then we get to LCQ and we're like behind a cage, like behind curtains, we can't really give input, and then I'm calling timeouts. I'm trying to talk during the timeout, and the guy running the soundboard forgets to unmute me. And so I lose a good 20 seconds of like timeout. And then I'm frustrated because I've been muted the entire time. And like, lose my train of thought, right? So it's like, it's frustrating, right? Like, as a coach and at BS shooter, I think it's a lot like soccer, right? It's not like football where you're calling the plays at the beginning of every round. It's more like soccer where, like in that Ted Lasso episode where he's explaining to his son, I can't talk to my team during the match. I just have to prepare them as best as I can and hope that I did a really good job preparing them so they can play well. But even then, a soccer coach is on the sidelines. He can talk to his players as they come in on and off the field. He can yell, he can clap, he can be happy. He's part of the conversation. And at the end of the day, once the match is over, they interview the coach because the coach has really good insight on what went on during the event, right? Like we do these events and we get these interview request sheets, and the coaches aren't even on them. They don't want to hear from us. They're not interested in what we have to say. So I think that we have a long way to come as far as getting coaches to the same kind of stature that they have in traditional sports. I think that there's a lot of room for that sort of improvement. I know these game developers want these to be a 5-man game, not a 6-man game, and that's kind of where some of these rules come from. But I think that the current restrictions are just too stringent, and they're not really conducive to the growth of the esport.
EMEA as coaches on pre-show. I'm pretty sure you were like tentatively invited for one at one point, Sicko. You're in the wrong region entirely. I guess seeing as you were talking about tac pauses, I think the obvious thing is that you'd expect to go in and just be like, all right, this is what they're doing, fix this. What do you tend to find yourself talking about the most in like tactical pauses? Because I imagine it's a good mix of this is what they're doing, exploit that, stop doing this, or even just giving that bird's eye perspective, right? So I imagine there's got to be multiple reasons why you've called a tap pause that might be a bit different to what people expect.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head for what most of them are. Like, we've chunked a few rounds, 2-3 rounds in a row. I'm noticing this. You guys haven't adapted to it yet. Make sure you're aware of this. Make sure you're aware that they or you are doing this and it's detrimental to what we're doing in our overall game plan. Those are obviously important, but it's also important, like, if you notice the atmosphere, the energy is low, right? We lose 2 rounds and then we're really quiet for 10 seconds between rounds. That's like, for me, that's a timeout. I crack some jokes. Like at LCQ, we were chunking rounds to LG, and Tig on LG is a good friend of mine. I've hung out with him here in Austin before, but I called the timeout. I knew the energy was low, so I just cracked jokes about how bad looking Tig was and, like how bad he was at the game, like just trying to get the morale up and the energy up, because sometimes that's what's required, right? Like it's not necessarily, hey, this is the play we're going to run. It's, hey, we need to lighten up a little bit, let's lighten the fuck up. Someone tell a knock joke, like even stuff like that is beneficial to the overall, presence of the game and the morale of your players, the confidence they bring in the server.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, I think there was like the thought process back in CS where everyone was like, let's just get 5 fraggers, get a coach, and have the coach IGL the whole way through. I think that's like very outdated. I think that every coach kind of understands that you want to build a team that's sort of independent of themselves. You don't want to be like have that burden on yourself either, because it's like, why were we there? So even in First Strike, like it was kind of similar too. When we did that one online, like we couldn't communicate with our players. Like we were all in the Discord, and like they made sure that we were like staying quiet during games, so we couldn't even really be a cheerleader in like that online setting. And I think that that kind of sucks, but I also understand it. I think that having gone through that experience before, at least when I talk to my team now, and even in Beast Coast before, I kind of explained to them like how we're going to treat practice how we treat Riot First Strike events, which is I'm not going to be talking to you while it goes live. Now we can ask a question, we can talk, like I'll be there, but the expectation of what I have to bring to the table, we're going to try and replicate that every day in practice, because you can't expect me to be able to give you strategic help and do certain elements while the game is live, because we can't do that in First Strike. And obviously I understand it's a long road to get there, but I firmly believe that if we have to practice that way when we get to there, we don't have to adjust So I think that that's kind of where our team's at now. Like, I don't ghost calm. Obviously, if there's certain things like we're getting crazy, that's kind of like if I would call a timeout, you know what I'm saying? But I think that you don't want to cross that line simply because you kind of want to let them understand how your impact is going to be online and how it's going to be at like the biggest event when you get to there, whether it's on LAN or a grand finals online or something like that.
That's super interesting because I was going to bring up that question as to, because back in the day, Danny, when you were playing for like Complexity and being like the star opper for that team in 1.6, and you always had Jason in the back just screaming every fucking round for that morale boost and stuff like that too. But I also wanted to bring the question is like, if we want to try to make it like traditional sports where coaches could kind of like scream at their players, talk at their players, and say like, I'm seeing this, then should they be able to like talk a little bit more in terms of strategically during the timeouts? And I think, or not the timeouts, sorry, during the freeze time, during the buy time. But I think your question is, or how you phrase that with, it's outdated. That when you had 5 fraggers and a brain IGLing between rounds, it's not the way to go. That answers my question, which is nice.
And then when you have people like Hunden doing what they do, it makes the middle ground like impossible. So it has to be one way or the other, in my opinion. So that's why it's like I don't really like have anything against it. There's just been a lot of bad apples in the coaching environment. For me, like I've been coaching in Valorant, but I was coaching in CS for maybe 1 year before like things kind of hit the fan in the NACS scene. So I don't really have all that much experience, but the things that I've seen, like even the, some of the CS coaches, they had Cypher cams before Valorant was even out, like it's wild. So that's why, like, we never even experienced that. Like I never even had that bug happen. So for me, like that's why I don't believe like there's allowed to be a middle ground, because there's been so many different instances of people abusing stuff like this,
Should there then, and I'll bring it over to you as well, Chris, and we could go down the line at the same time. Then, do you guys still feel very limited as to what you could do in between these rounds, right? Because again, you're not able to be there behind the players to motivate them between the rounds, to say nice with them too. So, what should you be allowed, like for example, during the freeze time, to at least be able to communicate and like hype up your team and stuff like that too, to keep the morale up? Or what would be some of the changes or recommendations that you like to bring as a coach to help the competitive integrity, I guess, of the esport itself within Valorant?
Sure. I mean, obviously, as a coach, I want to be able to help my team as much as possible. And being able to like be that emotional like hype person is like super, super useful. But I just don't know how to regulate that so that I'm not doing some Astros type thing where if I'm tapping this person's chair, it means one thing, or if I say let's fucking go, it means something, where if I say like get fucked, that means something else, right? Like I don't know how to regulate that, and I understand definitely concerns around that. And one thing that I do think is important to bring up when we're talking about distinctions between like esports titles and traditional sports is, as a coach, like I am seeing everyone's POVs, but I also know a lot more about like what the other team is doing than my players do. It is a huge part of Valorant and like League of Legends and whatever is the games have imperfect information, right? You do not know the whole picture. And as a coach, I am going to know the whole picture. So it's important that you are careful about what communication that you let me have with the players, right? Because I have extra information I can give to them, not just they aren't realizing something that's already on their screens. I can literally tell them things that were not on their screen, right? So stuff like that, I think, is an important reason why we have to be careful around stuff like this. But obviously, I want to be able to be like that emotional core for my players when they need that. I just don't know how to make that work in a way where we can avoid people cheating, because people will cheat. Like people will. So I really don't know. That doesn't mean there is no answer. I just don't know what it is.
I mean, I think I have a slightly different take on that, right? I think that as far as like what the coach sees and knows, there's not really anything that I have access to that I couldn't prepare my players to have, right? Like maybe I VOD reviewed the enemy team for the last 7 nights in a row, and I know a lot about them, but I can impart that information to my players in the form of preparation documents or just VOD reviewing with them as well, right? It's not like I'm sitting there watching the live stream and I see the other team's positions and the players can't. All I see during the match is what my players see. And though I'm able to see all 5 of them at once and they are not, that's a slight advantage as far as, being able to see multiple POVs at once. But if you take us off of those desks where we have all those POVs and just put us behind the player, then I'm just like a player in the fact that, I can only watch one screen at a time. I can't sit there and absorb all of these different information. So if you gave me the keys to the castle and allowed me to make the rules, I think what I would do is allow coaches to talk during the freeze time. That way I could say, keep my team hyped up. If I'm seeing something, I can convey that information. But then when the round starts, that ends, right? And I can't mid-round call my team or IGL my team into doing what I want them to do, as far as like having a player able to have that thought process when not having to play at the same time. I don't think that's a huge step up in terms of, like an unfair advantage. I understand, or I think Valve even in the past have said, they didn't like that because, lower tier teams may not have those opportunities to have a coach. But I think there's so many coaches out there just looking for jobs. So many tier 2, tier 3 coaches just trying to make their names for themselves, that I think any team, if they want a coach, have access to one. And I think just strengthening that position overall in the esports scene is good for the sport.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like just casters and observers in general too. It's like before even making it to the VCT stage, I think everybody's just trying to look for work. So any opportunities to get reps in, we'll definitely take that. Of course, if we get paid.
I mean, if you just look at the top 10 teams, that's 50 players, right? But that's only 10 coaches. It's very limited at the top, and there's just as many people that want to be coaches as want to be players, I would say. And they're all out there trying to make a name for themselves. So if you're a team and you feel disadvantaged because you don't have a coach, there's coaches out there that will coach you.
Yeah, just get one.
And
I don't know if like that's a good enough excuse.
If you can't play coach, if you can't coach, be an analyst. Speaking of which, one of the things that I remember seeing from Yinsu's Twitter recently is, and we get this a lot as talent, I think, where it's a case of we aren't immortal, therefore we can't have an analytical perspective on the game because we're not good at the game specifically based off a pretty arbitrary system. First question for all 3 of you is, what is your current rank in Valorant? And also, do you think that having some moderate level of being able to play yourself is important a little bit? Not at all. It is important, I imagine, from like Fraud's perspective, being an ex-pro player has benefited a lot with some of the things that you can bring forward, because it would be nice to have a categoric answer to just send this to people, to just get them to shut the fuck up when they say, Ryan's in gold, diamond, whatever, he doesn't get a perspective, right? So what's the perspective of you guys coaching and actually being decent at the game yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I'm immortal, so I guess I get that out the way. But
oh damn it, never mind.
The thing is, like, I think it's different though, because I understand what you're saying though completely, because like, first of all, Valorant is a new game. This isn't like Counter-Strike that's been out for 20 years, Valorant is brand new. So like, if you got in the game when the game came out and I got in, like, what's the difference between you and me in that perspective, right? Like, so I think that there's an element of, I mean, like, I understand like where some people get at with that, because they want to have, ex-pros, ex-players be involved in some of these things. But in a game like Valorant that is new and it's only been out for a year, you don't have an esports scene developed enough that has those retired pros, retired coaches that transition to those roles several years down the line in a scene that's only been out for a year. So I think that in due time, maybe some of those things happen, but in due time, skill gets better as well. And as coaches, we're evolving our skills. Analysts, I'm sure you guys are evolving your skills too. So it's like we're all in this to this thing together. So I think that that comes from like a very bad place, that some of these people are trying to, like, single out anybody or talk about any category of like task or job in this scene, like whether you're a journalist or anything. And I think everyone's trying to do a good job, as long as you're trying to do it with integrity and giving it all, your all. Like, I don't think anybody that's going out there is trying to do anything malicious. Now, what I will say though is that from, again, being a player, is like, I don't like sometimes if like they criticize a player too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't, like, not every analyst always knows exactly what, or a commentator knows exactly what goes into a match or strategic or what's going on in the player. They can't see everything that goes on, so there's got to be an element of like, maybe like not criticize players as much. I'm not saying that they do, but that's just something that I would feel like would set people off if they maybe cross those kind of boundaries, or if you're like telling players what they should be doing and whatnot.
Some do
Yeah.
for sure, though. I agree with you, Danny. Like, and this is what I tell a lot of aspiring casters
Well, I
too.
think
Is
that
like
there needs to be
you-
more. But just very quickly,
Yeah.
a lot of commentators like they make a technical failure to ascribe the appropriate amount of benefit of the doubt. And there is a way to commentate without having to make like this like ironclad assertion about something that happens. Like there's no reason that you can't be open to, you know, as a commentator also not having the full picture. So
Yeah, I mean,
Carry on,
even
Benzo.
like in no, like even like in CS, like when Vansilli, like he was casting all the way in like 2002, 2003, like with me and stuff like that. It's like it didn't matter how long I had been in the scene or his rank in the game. Like he was doing an excellent job in instilling his passion and trying to drive the scene forward. I think that as long as you do that, you're doing an excellent job. And I think that, you know, to his credit, I think that he always like made sure never to like tell people exactly what they should be doing or like what he sees from his perspective like that, like because you don't want to cross those line and anger those players that at the end of the day are going to give you those good interviews and things like that when at the end of the day, like I said, you just don't know what goes on into the strategic side of these teams or these decisions that get made, so it's kind of tough, you know.
you have to
Yeah,
wear
you
that
can,
extra
you
hat
can
too.
do it without overstepping. I think.
Exactly.
And that's actually part of the technical skill set of a commentator. If you don't know how to do that, you're just not a great caster. It doesn't matter how good you are at the
Like
game.
there was an example from Masters where it was like Sentinels got knocked out by Envy, and I think it was the split series where Tens is playing Raze, which he doesn't typically do, and he underperformed, and somebody mentioned that was the reason why Sentinels lost the series, and it's like it's a point. It's not the entire reason. It's almost a bit dismissive, almost. And yeah, in that situation, Fraud, I can see a lot of people going, that wasn't the reason why Sentinels lost. This is why.
Yeah.
Like, it's just almost misinformation that's put out by people that are a bit ignorant or naive, I imagine.
Yeah, it's academically bankrupt behavior as well.
Yeah.
Like you're not really, you're as a caster, you're expected to be able to see things through multiple lenses. And if you end up being so black and white, then you're probably just shit.
I still wear the player's hat in the end, right? Because how I like to approach is like if we get to see everything from a bird's eye view because we're casters and we get to see all 10 little dots on that mini map, so we know what should happen and what could happen. But then you put yourself in the shoes of the players and to being like, what did they see? How are they communicating? Maybe like where was that mistake, and then you call it out, but you don't have to like bash them on there. So there's
just a
window
million
that
things to
you can
talk about as a caster. If you don't know something for sure, you actually don't have to say it.
Yeah.
Or you could just say that you don't know for sure, and that's okay.
Yeah, as long as you have that
Fine.
baseline understanding of what it's like to be a player, I think that's enough, right? Like, I'm immortal as well, but I'm immortal because I duo queue with one of my players, right? Like, I'm realistically probably not as good as yeah. But you know, like the thing is, I could be a good coach if I were missing one of my arms. If I were missing one of my arms, I would be an Iron 1 Valorant player. It doesn't matter how much I know, doesn't matter how smart I am or how strategic I am. I'm never gonna get out of Iron 1 because I have one arm, right? And I think that's important to remember is like how precise you are with your right hand does not really dictate how well you're going to be at coaching or how good of a caster you're going to be, right? As long as you have a baseline understanding of the game.
Real quick, like, do you gain anything from playing ranked from a coaching perspective?
Oh yeah. I think it's important. You stay on top of like meta shifts. You see new things that players are doing with utility. You get better understanding of the agents and what things look like from that side of it. I think playing as a player is important in ranked, whether you're in platinum, whether you're in immortal, it doesn't matter. I know coaches on top 10, top 15 teams who are gold or lower. I know a bronze coach that is in a top 10 org right now. You know, I don't think that inhibits him in any way. I think that as long as he is playing ranked and is getting an understanding of what it's like to be in the server and play as a player, that's important. But his job is not to aim well. You know, he probably has an exceptional understanding of the game, just has really bad aim, right? And
you guys don't have time.
Inhibit you from ranking up. Yeah.
You guys also don't have time to play the game because I say the same thing to, like, for example, Anders, right? When I played a pug with Anders, who's now analytical coach for Fnatic, I was yelling at him because he was like a gold 1 not breaking the Aldrone, but technically it was my fault. Right? But then at the same time, he's spending so much time putting all these recaps, running the stats that you don't have time to play ranked to bring that up. Yes, it's nice to play, to know the basics of like how the agent's being played with the new agent that's coming out too, how that meta shifts, how that meta evolves. But the aim doesn't bring into, the theory crafting and the analysis that you're able to do by watching the games after. So I think there's pros and cons, of course, of being heavily vested into a different aspect into esports, that's not pro gaming, right? So
No, and playing the game a little bit too. I think, like, at least from my perspective, it helped me maybe try and scout out some talent. Just seeing
Yes.
maybe if there's different players out there, that maybe you've not heard of, or trying to grind through the ranks. Because even if you're immortal, you do get to play against Radiant, right? So it's like you do get to have those games and see those players. So at least early on, it was like a very good way for me to keep an eye out on rising talent, and I still to this day kind of do that. And it's a way of seeing like how dedicated some players are as well, like how much they play those games and stuff. So you kind of want to see that from a player. And from my perspective, I like seeing it firsthand a little bit, and not necessarily take everyone's word for it. I like to kind of get in there and see. And it's always good because you find some really talented players like that. I'd see.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Dream? What rank are you at? And also from Overwatch perspective as well, like somebody raised a point in Monte Cristo in the Overwatch League, was a renowned silver player, but knew a lot about the game and the stories. And I think that's another thing, seeing as we have a lot of casters that watch this as well. You don't have to just be good at analytical stuff to do.
He just rubbed people up the wrong way though. So it's just really common way to criticize him because he just pissed people off. So that's the only reason why. Like he pissed people off.
I'm not going to defend Monty. I have plenty of beef with Monty. That's fine. But I peaked in Master in Overwatch, and when I say peaked, I crossed in once. I was diamond for the overwhelming majority of the time, right? And I started playing Overwatch way before I was trying to get into the esports scene at all. Just played it for fun, whatever. I have never played a ranked game of Valorant. Zero. I have played 0 ranked matches. I do think there is a ton of value that comes from ranked ladder. I have a hard time getting value out of that. And instead, I watch a lot of streams of players that play ladder. And you still get to pick up on a lot. I do not think it is the same level of value, but it is a much lower investment of time. And when it comes to when new agents come out or we're looking for utility, I don't know if this comes from my experience in Overwatch or whatever, but it is very when the new agent comes out, I am the one that's going into a server and figuring out all the weird quirks and the interactions, how their utility works with different geometry in the maps, how it interacts with other agents, how the sound cues work, all that shit. I that's what we always had to do times infinity when Overwatch came out, because there's so many weird interactions and so many totally different abilities and stuff. So that's just always my instinct. So I do like to get nerdy and get in a server and figure that stuff out. But I do not really play the game. If you look at my account, it's literally nothing but DMs. I just play DMs when we're just waiting for stuff to happen. I'll just hop in a DM and just run around and have a good time. But I have never played a ranked game, and if I did, I would not be high ranked. Period.
What about the battle pass?
Yeah, no.
I can say this: it is a little bit tough for me, who is a high silver, low gold player, to get a lot of value out of playing ranked as a caster, because it's not remotely the same experience. You got motherfuckers lurking on Reyna. You've got the wackest, the fucking wackest shit going on. So obviously, I think at that level, your time is probably better spent watching VODs and streams, I think, for sure. And then you have to ask yourself, is the significant time investment required in ranking up, is it worth it? Or is it going to detract from the fact that I already have a job as a coach or as a caster? You know what I mean? I think that's a big question. I also want to say that, so a lot of viewers that are higher ranked, because they don't fucking cast or coach, they don't have a job. Their job is to fucking watch, their job is to consume Valorant content without contributing at all to the space, right? That's their fucking job, basically. They have the time to play Rain, and they have a vested interest in making themselves feel like they deserve your job, right? They move the goalposts and say, yes, a caster should be this exact rank that, oh, well, I happen to be that rank. Well, yeah, that's what they should be. Because first of all, it gives them ammunition to try and shit on someone. Secondly, it makes them feel superior to them, right? I mean, people need to understand the time spent. But the synopsis here is that you can get a lot of value, I think, from playing ranked and being high ranked, but only get a certain rank bracket. And again, if you're already at that caliber of a player, then that's fine. But then that time investment you need to make to maybe get there, if you're not, may be superseded by you actually just doing your fucking job.
Well,
whether it's as a caster or a coach.
The time investment and the hit on your mental health, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's fucking hard. I don't have a TAC FPS background either. It's fucking hard.
I had a sheriff-only breach on my team up against a judge-only raise. I don't know who won or lost. I lost. I lost fucking brain cells and punching myself in the dick for 40 minutes or whatever it was. But yeah, like it's a certain threshold. Like I'm playing a lot of ranked at the moment because I've got no work for the rest of the year as far as I know. So like nice bit of downtime and nice to really give myself a hemorrhage. But yeah, like I think there's diminishing returns if you're a lower rank. But I think it's just if you get to a motto, you can just that's it. Nobody can really disagree or discuss it.
I think it's just a personal thing. To go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I can't really. I haven't been talked about this from like an analyst perspective. Like, how can you be an analyst if you're not that good at the game? But people have said that to me even back in Overwatch, right? When I'm like a diamond player, like, why are you coaching an Overwatch League team when you're only diamond? And I'm like, well, Bill Belichick fucking sucks at playing football. So I don't. They aren't the same skill set.
Yeah, I think it's like a personal thing. Like even for me, I think you always hear people talking about like there's a Radiant player that plays Cypher only with a controller.
I remember that guy.
You hear the rumors of like getting to Immortal or getting to Radiant, like solo queuing. Like I try and like put myself through that to like at least understand what the players go through. So like I say, I think it's a personal thing. I don't think it's a requirement. Like I don't think another coach like has to play ranked in order to be a good coach. It's just a personal thing for me as far as like wanting to understand what my players go through on a day-to-day basis.
Isn't it, really? Like
well, it's like if you expect your players to like play ranked after, and like there's like they say that practice is 6 hours and you want them to do 3, 4, 5 hours of individual work, you want to understand what they're going through. So when they tell you what it's like and it's really bad in the mornings or nighttime queues or the demons are out, like you kind of want to get an understanding of what it's like, because at the end of the day, if you're just saying stuff to say stuff, then I mean at the end of the day, like you're not really putting yourselves in the shoes of the player to understand what they go through. And then like I said, in Valorant, it's a whole new world, this rank system and everything, so we have to continue to educate ourselves as we go in this whole process.
Yeah, and I think even those of us that play, like Danny and I, like I mean, I probably have 10 to 20 games or 10 to 20 wins each act, right? Like that's not a lot in the grand scheme of like what players actually get. But to put that in contrast, I'm watching anywhere from 30 to 60 hours of Valorant,
of course,
like footage as a viewer, observer, as a coach each week. That the playing time pales in contrast to that. And I think the time you spend actually watching, coaching, observing VODs and taking notes, that's far more important, right? And that's going to put more benefit into how good you are at your job.
That's why the general public doesn't fucking see. They just see you on camera for like those 5 minutes, but they don't see you on like.
It's a misconception that like playing the game translates to these other specialized fields.
Especially when you can get to Immortal by just having good aim. Like there's so many people. This like judge only stuff or like sheriff only stuff, like
controller.
It's not exclusive to gold. Like you see that in Immortal too. Like some of these people are absolutely brain dead. They didn't get there because they have 150 IQ. They got there because their right hand and their micro movements with their right hand are just phenomenal. And that's
clearly where I saw
enough
it.
To carry
the Radiant game, how it is.
All right, gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure to have you guys along here. We're going to go down the line really quickly and just hear a little bit about what's coming up next for all of you, because obviously, it's crazy stuff going on. So, I mean, let's start with Danny, and we'll go across here, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. What's coming up next for you?
I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, we're just grinding it out with the Pioneers right now, man. Like we're trying to build our roster out, trying to get everyone finalized. I feel like we've been doing a pretty good job of navigating these waters now, especially with like I wanted to try and get everything done before LCQ. Now that LCQ is done, like I'm kind of sweating a little bit because I just like I know that what we're doing is good over here, so I want to make sure that we just get everything locked and loaded, and then if the poaching happens, then so be it. At least my org will continue to make more money from this, but like it is what it is. And like, I'm just excited for it because there's so many good players. I think that you're going to start seeing like a shifting a little bit next year, like going to some of these like new talented players kind of taking over the scene. Some of these maybe players and pros that were around from the very beginning may not continue to grind next year. A lot of changes going on. So I'm super excited about that. And kind of seeing the next wave of talent come through and, see how 2022 goes for like everyone, and how all these teams kind of put their rosters together.
You guys have a tourney coming up this week too, no?
Yeah, we have a tournament in a couple of days. We played a Knights tournament a few weeks ago, and then we had a couple guys moving, taking care of a few personal things over the last few weeks. So we're back in full force, and we do have that community gaming tournament day after tomorrow. So it'll be this weekend, yeah. And then we'll be pretty much like signed up for all tier 2 tournaments going forward. Like I said, the only reason why we took that small break was because guys had to finish moving across the country and whatnot. But we pretty much sort of finalized like the roster and the people we're going to be playing with for the most part. And like really excited about that.
Awesome dream.
Yeah, we will also be playing in the community gaming tournament in a couple of days. We're really looking forward to that. We haven't played in tournaments in a little bit. We've also had some people with some personal stuff going on that's kind of gotten in the way of some of our scheduling stuff, but we've got this tournament where we're going to be able to show some new fun stuff. I can't leak any of it, but there will be some fun stuff going on. And similarly, we will also be playing in like the sort of NSGs and stuff like that. A lot of the tier 2 tournaments immediately after that. Just looking to really grind things out. The holidays are like a little weird for us because we have students and stuff, and like exams come up at that time, right? But we really want to use this like quote unquote like kind of off season to grind out a lot and improve a lot of things, and then go into next year looking really strong. But we're just excited to get back to competing.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. And you, Don?
Yeah, for us, a lot of the same. We take a short break after LCQ. Obviously not the results we wanted. We were really hoping to qualify for champions. But we're keeping this squad together going into next year. Everybody's really happy about what we've accomplished so far, and excited about what the future holds. We won't be in the community gaming tournament. We were invited, but unfortunately someone had some personal stuff going on that day. But there are some Nerd Street weeklies coming up that we're going to take part in. There's a Nerd Street LAN in Philly that I believe we'll be attending, get some LAN experience under some of these younger guys' belts, and just continuing to tighten up on some of our weaker maps. Shake up some of the agent compositions, see how this new agent falls into the mix, see how Fracture falls into the mix, and just really hitting it hard next year, because our expectation is really to punch out of this kind of plateau that we've hit. We're getting close to the top every time, but seemingly unable to reach it. And our goal next year is really to just be one of those top teams that goes to these international events. That's where all of our guys want to be. That's where I want to be, where the org wants to be, right? We're not in the business of developing all these players. Like we've done a really good job of finding these talents that have been laying around that people have been overlooking, bringing them in and developing them. And we're not here to develop players and sell them. We're here to develop players and win. And that's our goal next year. And we're going to come in next year and we're going to win.
The new envy of 2022.
I just want to point out, I think it's a fucking crime that more microphones haven't been put in front of you guys in the past. We're obviously really pleased to have the opportunity to get to hear from you guys. I think that you guys really have a heck of a lot to bring, not only to your teams, but also in terms of just, educating the community about what it takes to do what you guys do. So I want to thank you guys, because I know you've been busy for taking time out to talk to us. I think this was really valuable, not only for me personally, but I think also to get some of this discussion out there. So from myself and the rest of us at the show, thank you, 3 of you guys, so much for coming on, and we look forward to seeing you again, I hope.
Thanks so much for having us. Happy to come back.
Love you guys. Thanks so much, man.
Have a good one. Yeah, that was probably my favorite segment I've ever done on this show. I'm not gonna lie, guys, that was really cool. Great to hear, obviously, from some of the most preeminent coaches in this scene. And obviously you guys should follow them on their social media. It was below their little face plates there if you want to check out what they're doing. I should have asked them that, but we're running out of time. Great conversation. So guys, I want to talk about it more, but we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Redbull Homegrounds. We've got a bone to pick there amongst all that. And then, we'll talk a little bit about Arcane. We'll see you guys on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back, everybody. Yeah, great to hear a little bit from our coaches and such on the other side of the break. Ryan, obviously, he has a fire alarm going off in his building, which is really funny because the next segment of the show, Vance, is actually why we brought him on to the show. So, obviously, a little difficult. If he's evacuated, then so be it. Obviously, over the weekend we had the Redbull Homegrounds tournament. I don't know how much of that you got a chance to see, Vance.
So
because
I got to watch a bit. I got to watch a bit yesterday. So like, honestly, let's put it on the table at least.
Okay.
I personally didn't watch too much of Redbull Homegrounds because I was watching a CS:GO major. I apologize, chat.
Sure.
I was a traitor to Valorant for that weekend because
I'd be more worried if you weren't watching the major personally. I know that
it was a
Homeground
fucking
is
sick
important,
major,
but-
man.
Yeah.
Like everything was sick about that, and to see Simple win a major finally I'm ecstatic. And now we have to start cheering for Nico in G2 to be the next one to get a major, so he deserves it. Nonetheless, though, I did watch a bit to get back on topic with the Red Bull Homegrounds. I didn't watch the whole event because honestly, I took that event with a grain of salt. I know teams want to win, but I still know that teams probably will not do as much as we expect them to do, right? So, which is why I think the CS:GO major was probably awesome to watch, more awesome to watch.
So, I mean, we can at least bring up our groups. So we can bring out the graphic and stuff. I mean, I am assuming we're just going to carry on with the show here.
Look, no, I'm down. I'm okay to talk about this from a broad stroke, but I think what's also more important too is I think we have some time to kill while we wait and see what happens to Ryan with a special topic that was also happening during this event, right? So we were wondering what was going on with the event in itself, because I think they had 2 streams or so going on for the coverage of the event. And from what we've been hearing is that there is a second stream that happened that was more of like a community stream, kind of like all that jazz kind of thing. And I felt, Mitch, that some time ago, like during the summertime, we've touched upon this topic and you were pretty...
Okay, you're being too cryptic.
There you go. That will summarize
okay, so
it, and then I'll let you go off.
Ryan would probably help me add more context here, but I mean, I think if Vinci's still in the chat, if she's finished roasting metaphor, maybe she can chime in on this. But so from what I understand, there is an A stream with people in the studio, so like
Correct.
Mitch, Tom, Pansy, everyone was in there,
Hypoc, yeah.
and there was also
Yinsu.
a B stream. There was a B stream for this event. People were working this B stream for nothing. Nothing. What is going on? Why are we still having this conversation in the current year? So you are running a fucking B stream and it's on a volunteer basis. So, okay, let's talk about, no, bring back the tweets. No, we'll get into this. Let's look at those tweets again, because I didn't really get to fucking call these out properly. So Melanie says, why is one of these bigger tournaments, there's a volunteer stream. It's not my job to feel bad over this, but it baffles me how you make people, in fairness to Mel, I mean, this does affect you, because if people are fucking doing the same job as you for nothing, it's going to be a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to fucking town on Nerd Street. I suplexed those motherfuckers. Why are you doing this? If you cannot afford, if you don't have the budget to pay for a second stream, don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to have a fucking stream without paying the people to do it. That's not how this works, mate. This isn't some fucking Mickey Mouse, like turn up at the sandpit and try and fucking, make something happen. You don't get to be Red Bull and then here's a great opportunity for you guys to get some exposure. Well, at one point they only had one caster on it. Of course, because no one wants to do this shit for free unless they're absolute fucking nobodies with zero experience. You know what I mean? Why are you compromising the quality of your broadcast? Why are you risking this?
Mm-hmm.
Go show the games. Sorry, you want to tell me that you don't have the budget? You did hire a lot of the top talent in Europe right now, many of you who are represented by agencies who have pretty big rates. Now, I love all those guys on the show, but if you want to have 2 streams, I don't know, maybe find a way to split the talent amongst the streams a little bit more. That would have been a lot of work. Yeah, you probably should have just found some more money. You know what? You should have just found some more money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like this, I'm just repeating myself at this point. This is nothing new. This is the same shit we're still doing. But this time, it's from an actual reputable company with a marketing arm with budgets. And you're still doing this shit. This is like compared to VCT in Europe, this is like the tier below. It's a pretty high tier event with high expectations set in the past, because it's Red Bull. They had Homegrounds at the start of this year, at the end of January. They have invited the top teams in the world, and you have a fucking volunteer stream. Get out of my industry. Get out.
What wasn't there too, like the Red Bull did the Red Bull Campus Clutch, and when they had the Red Bull Campus, because I know they had different like branches and such, right? You have like Redbull Canada, Redbull US, UK, Spain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody has different allocated budget and stuff for that too. That said, though, my understanding as well is that whenever they had the Red Bull Campus Clutch going into, I guess it was the EMEA finals, right? And that also happened in the UK. You actually did have enough talent to rotate through all of that so that nobody gets worked out. Because from my understanding too, as we're reading in the chat, Yinsu said that they've done a two-person desk for 4 days. I'm assuming it's just her and Lothar that just manned it for like X amount of hours. I'm assuming it's like 10 hours at this point because you potentially have like 1, 2 BO5s because it's homegrown rules. If you guys are unaware of that, it's like if you lose your homegrown map pick, then it turns into a BO5. So it could turn into some very, very long days. That said, like I'm quite surprised that it's an org like Red Bull that didn't manage their budget correctly to be able to have the right amount of people. Is
That's what it sounds like.
It's
they didn't have enough people.
Yeah,
they didn't have enough people, right? Because the desk was it was like Lothar and then someone else, and then that person walked over to cast or whatever. Like it was a lot of games. It was a lot of like broadcast hours. You know, like look, fans, I'm happy to accept that this is just like them not knowing how to run a Valorant event, but there's how many other examples of Valorant events do we already have? A fuckload. We have so many. Oh, we have so many examples of this. You cannot do this, Red Bull.
Yeah.
You can't. This is not fucking allowed. And who says? Me.
Yeah.
Who the fuck was responsible for this? I want to know who it was. I want to have a very frank conversation with them because they are not doing anybody any favors. They're just not. Whoever you are, you had better hope that this is benign ignorance. Because if it's not, I'm going to fucking come for you. Seriously.
I think that it is too. Because again, I've done events for Red Bull Canada. I've done events for Red Bull in the States.
Yeah, Red Bull US been fine. They paid my rate.
Exactly.
Everything was great. You know?
Yeah. So there's definitely miscommunication or maybe like best practices between international organizations that are not being shared, right? Because, for example, when I used to work in the tobacco industry in Philip Morris in Canada, if I wanted to learn things that was being done in other markets in Europe, whatnot, I'd have to contact a branch over in Europe and see their best practices and stuff like that too. So I think maybe, you know, I'm taking that in terms of like the person that put this together probably didn't try to do that research or have that conversation from their peers from other branches in other countries to be able to find the best practices to make sure that that budget is allocated. Because as you mentioned, we talked about this before going live too, Mitch, is that when we're actually trying to plan a certain budget and some things are omitted and you realize that the costs are higher than what you budgeted, you still have to go through a chain of commands to get that budget released.
Yes.
And even from a business perspective, is let's say in Q2 of your business, you're given, let's say, just $10,000. Let's just say $10,000 for now. And you say, for Q2, I have $10,000 to budget 3 months of marketing, right? And if I get to like $8,000 in my second month, I'm like, holy fuck, I only have 2 months, $2,000 left for 3 months. If I need to get more, I need to get that release. I need to get that approved.
Yeah, I know. But listen, take it from me. These companies can find more money. You know how I know that? Yeah. I have made them find more money. I need more than one hand to count the times that this has happened. I've made them fucking shake the money tree. And I mean, Jensen brings up a decent point in the chat as well. If you do not have the budget to run a B stream, then I recommend you find a way to incentivize a large streamer to run a co-stream. That would be what I would recommend. You know, despite what I've shared thoughts on co-streaming, I think, and you know, and how it might impact the scene going forward. I think we can all agree that it's a positive. That they exist. And you know, the economics of a co-stream are vastly different, right? I mean, sometimes you might incentivize a streamer to do it, but mostly you don't really have to because they get content on their channel, right? And they can monetize that in their own way. That is what you should be doing. And I understand, like, if the budget's not there, but like there doesn't excuse this, right? There's a mistake that's made along the way in terms of how you budget out this event. And I would like there to, you know, I don't know if the talent knew this going forward. And I'd like to think if you're talent and you get a decent enough advance notice about this, that you would pipe up and go, hey, this is a lot for just us. I'd like to hope that you guys did that, or at least had advance notice and were able to sort of, you know, voice your concerns if they were there. Because in a perfect world, you guys have a bit of notice. You get told that, you guys put your heads together and go, hey, this is a lot for just us. You go back to them, they release the budget, they hire more people, so on and so forth. I know people that did not do this event because, quote unquote, the budget wasn't there. I know that this happened in this particular case, right? If you can't get a co-stream, then you don't get a co-stream. You don't get to have a B stream for free. You don't get to, on one hand, be an organization, a brand that's had some really good, authentic partnerships in esports, and then turn around and do this. I really expect a hell of a lot more from Red Bull.
Yeah,
it's not acceptable. And obviously, we talked about how we ascribe blame in these scenarios. I'm also not very happy with the people that that sort of volunteered for this, but I understand why you might do it. Wish it didn't have to happen, honestly.
Yeah,
that's
and in the end, I give. There you go. Ryan's back. We'll keep him like that. but then again,
it's the only picture of Ryan that we had. Yeah,
I mean, it's only fitting into the topic that we currently have. But I will give a shout out to the casters, not necessarily because they decided to do this for free. I think that's a bad play, but also props to them to try to get the reps in. I think overall though, it's still a tough spot because you're Red Bull and you're being represented by two casters who might not have as much experience casting attack FPS or even casting gaming with Valorant. Because I was watching this game, I was watching some games on Fractures.
Was the casting good on the volunteer stream?
That's what I was getting to. It was people that were practicing and trying to get the reps in, which is why it's like a loss in a sense that you're trying to get your reps in and practice, but you're doing it at an event that's one tier below the VCT that has a lot of these top European teams playing that will have a lot of eyes watching. So if you don't have the other reps in or watching the VODs and understanding the game to get to that point, and you're now having to face with chat that's going to be full out toxic for you throughout the whole game. I didn't watch the chat when I was watching the VOD, so I don't know exactly what was going on, but at least from my critical perspective of watching these people cast or listening to these people cast, there was definitely a lot of work that needed to be done.
Right? Was this on a Red Bull stream or was it on their own stream?
I think it was the secondary stream, like the co-stream.
Yeah, I think it's almost fine if they can do it on their own stream, right? I mean, that's basically a co-stream sort of set up. I think I've come around a little bit on that idea.
I'm going to double check. I'm going to double check at this point because I still think
it's softening the blow of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's more acceptable if the streamer themselves is able to monetize that opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. I think it was on TGH, so the Goose House's stream as a co-stream. So then,
so not the caster's streams, right?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I'm clicking on it right now. It's
yeah. I mean, listen. I think it's nuanced. It's a pretty okay. So if you tune in from the start of the segment, you would not think it was nuanced based on my conduct, my behavior. Like I'm genuinely very unhappy with this because I don't know how many times I just have to get angry.
Yeah.
Like in my experience in my life, getting angry like that rarely has been able to drive a positive result off the bat. It's always required more than just me getting mad. But I will legitimately make your life very difficult if you're trying to operate in this industry if you conduct your business in this way. That is not a threat. That is a fucking promise. Don't do this shit, okay? I've become psychotic enough as an individual to go that far as to fuck with you. And my platform is only going to grow as I do that. So let's just try and pay people what they're worth. And if you don't have the money, you don't get to have your cake. All right. You don't get cake if you can't afford to buy it. I think that's really simple. So,
so what do you think?
I won't say too much more on that.
What do you think at this point, though? If it's a co-stream that went on through an official channel that's not the casters, should at least that co-stream have a budget to pay those casters? I would like to think so.
I mean, I think the casters should always get paid. I think they should. I think the gray area happens when these casters co-stream on their channel, but they cast, right? It's a co-stream, regardless of how you do Average Jonas could cast, and in fact, he did at times on his co-streams, and then he just decided not to because reacting was more. I think it's more interesting, right? Anyway, in that sense, so that's the gray area. But Yeah, I mean the Goose House is non-profit. That's fine. But no one's fucking profiting out of this, are they? Like literally, everyone's losing because the budgets are not set properly. Here's the ideal world: you have enough budget to pay casters to do both streams. You want to pick up some up and comers and pay them. Fine, that's fine. Hopefully the up and comers are willing to ask questions about how much they should be charging at their sort of expertise level. Yada yada yada. You can DM me. All right, you can fucking tweet at me if you want to know what the industry standard rate is. But yes, so there's just better ways of doing this. I'm just fucking pissed off. Let's move on. So Ryan might be back. He definitely has something going on in his place. It's probably burning down. Ryan Strike is the kind of guy that like. So I would prefer not to go over these home ground results without him here because he was there. Sure. He was obviously watching this stuff, and so we'll cross to another topic. And if he doesn't come back, he doesn't come back. You know what I mean? That's just the way it's going to be. So. First of all, I mean, I've got to call this out as a very ambitious sort of crossover project that in my eyes has been really successful in my layman's understanding of how marketing and cross-pollination of brand goes. Arcane, obviously the Netflix series focused in Runeterra, specifically Piltover and Zorn. That's not, I don't think that's sort of spoilers. Released, 3 episodes are out, I think. So like the first act, so to speak. A really unique art style that I've not really seen in sort of animated sort of TV. I don't think I've ever seen it. I'm not really sure. But it's great. I don't want to spoil it. If you have Netflix, you should definitely check it out. It's really good.
It's fucking sick. And even the company that Riot chose to do this design and the animation, I think they've worked with them before in the past. I think it's a small company in France. So I've watched that premiere, like the red carpet quote unquote event that they held before the episodes were released. So this was I think at 9 Eastern until 10 Eastern, and then you actually had the voice actors come through. You had also the creators of the show that worked with Riot that are talking about their journey and putting this together. So they found this small company in France to actually do I think it was a video clip and a music clip with Jinx on top of that too. And then they decide to keep him to do this whole storyline for Arcane, which is actually.
I remember sick. There was like some clip released. It was like Vi and Caitlyn fighting its Urgot or some shit. It's like this random
something like that too. Like a lot of the animation too. Like what was really good with Riot so far was that they were good in doing these storylines and these anime battles or whatever, but the characters never really spoke. So the biggest challenge that came out of Riot was to figure out, okay, what voice could we actually have to match these characters and also create a storyline that will still do justice for everybody else that's currently playing League of Legends for like 10 plus years now. When did it come out? 2011, 2013? Can't remember. But like it's like everybody that's tied into the lore, everybody that's tied to these characters, everybody's just tied to Riot in general. That was their biggest stress and challenge going into that. I think it took them 3 years to actually even get the voice character correct. For Jinx. So props to Riot because I think they did a great job with these 3 first episodes that came out.
Yeah, I mean, no spoilers here as well, but the actress Shorey Agdashlu, I think her name is, obviously is in Arcane, and she is Christian Avasarala from The Expanse. So one of my absolute favorite actresses. And she's an incredible voice, and she really nailed the role.
I've watched her in what was that zombie movie in Netflix, Army of the Dead, that just came out recently. She's awesome in that too. So Fortiche is the name of the producer, the animated company that did the animations for the show. So great job to Fortiche. They did a lot of these video clips as well, and I do remember it was a video clip with Jinx too. For like it was more music videos than anything as well, instead of the animated battles that they did. So that was actually great. The green carpet event or the red carpet event was really actually cool.
They had like performances there and stuff like that. They invited a bunch of dignitaries, so to speak. It was good.
Who's the rapper from Linkin Park? I'm not good with names, but the one that raps in Linkin Park was there too because he's a fan of League of Legends.
Mike Shinoda.
Yes, that's it. Mike Shinoda was there. He was being interviewed by Pastry Time. So the hosts Rib was there too hosting. They did a great job. It was fucking sick.
That's fucking awesome. Obviously, Imagine Dragons did do the theme song for it as well, which is great. Yeah. I mean, look, it's just fucking good. Anyway, but why? I really can't take away from this. This is just fucking sick. So it is made such a splash, I guess, that evidence of Arcane's existence has spilled over into many other IPs. Okay. So Valorant, obviously, as we've seen, has a crossover. So here you got a cupcake gun buddy here. You obviously, I mean, I don't know. Oh yes, I know. After seeing the first episode, I know. So yeah, I like that. This is a subtle reference, actually. This is nothing overly very overt, but just enough that you can sort of understand where it comes from. Obviously, also there was like there's like a pack, right? A bundle of stuff, including like a sheriff that's like looks like the guns that Jinx is using.
Yeah, it's fucking sick. I bought it, of course. It's nice, and you can do like visual effects with it as well. There's banners, as you can see right now. There's a spray. The gun sounds super cool. I actually really like it from the sheriff's point of view. I don't use the Iron Sheriff anymore, nor the Singularity. Yeah, so the Arcane one's actually pretty cool, and
that
they did
sticker,
so much shit.
That sticker is in fucking Legends of Runeterra, by the way.
Yeah.
That Heimerdinger sticker. So that's kind of cool that it's also in Valorant now.
Which is also what I like from the show.
Do that when you're trying to figure out how to hit lethal. You fucking spam that one.
and while these are going through, what I also liked about the show is like if you've played League of Legends or you're familiar with it in a bit, there's like little Easter eggs of like, this shark right here is like a silhouette in something. There's some of the masks that reminds me of the masks of Jin. It's just really cool. Like even I think some of the weapons and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
I'm a Jinx main in League, so I love this shit.
There you go. Yeah, so you definitely see that in the show. So it's fucking cool as a gamer and as a fan of just Riot or watching League of Legends for a bit, playing normals. For me, I don't play ranked, but just to see that being replicated in the show, it actually got me more vested into watching Arcane than I did, for example, watching Dota. But then again, the Dota show for me versus me playing Dota, I've only played like 5 minutes of Dota and I didn't like it, so maybe I didn't find any correlation between that and anime. But yeah, man, this game was this show was really good. This show was really good.
This is the sheriff right there, right?
Yeah, it's fucking sick. I really like it. I don't think we have this in our run of show to like show the graphic, but I think what they've done really good too for Riot to promote this as well is that they also have this website that I could actually go to, which is like Arcane. Let me try to remember.
It's like a story text-based RPG almost. You can sort of explore the world of I didn't want to do it until I watched the first 3 episodes. I wanted to watch the first 3 episodes. I think
I was doing that before we went on air because it was just fun to just read through all this shit. So it's kind of Riot X Arcane.
It's kind of insane that we're spending so much time talking about it, but I don't know. It's just one of the things I'm enjoying most this week, mate. I mean
they're good, man. They're doing so much.
Such a splash that there you go. Right, X Arcane. This made such a splash that evidence of Arcane's existence turned up in other fucking games. This is wild. I know that these big crossovers are a thing in Fortnite, but I didn't expect to see 2 game IPs cross over. This is mental.
It's insane. I don't know. I don't know if like they had to pay like a huge extra bonus to get mentioned into Fortnite, because that's fucking sick. When you're thinking of just like
technically they're competing, right? They're both like
that's exactly it.
Titles.
That's exactly it, right? They had like all these like the Marvel one that came out for Fortnite, then they had the Ariana Grande, then they also had you guys will hate me for this, but the rapper, I forgot his name. But I think it was for Juice WRLD, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Fuck. I don't know names. I'm not good with that, chat.
I mean, they have everybody. They have fucking NFL outfits in Fortnite. Everything's crossed over in Fortnite, yeah.
And then now you have 2 competing publishers, and they're actually able to do a cross-promotion.
Are they competing anymore? Because now fucking Riot games are on the Epic Store.
Exactly. But how much are you paying for that, too? Like,
I don't know how the economics of that's supposed to work. I guess it puts the game in front of more people, but...
Is it now cosmetics that you buy within a game is now a percentage that goes back to Epic Games now, because all these games are free. All these games are free. Exactly. So if you put it up on there and you're rivaling publishers, then why as Epic Games would I want to put Valorant and Legends of Runeterra and League of Legends and all the other games on my own platform, if I could potentially lose my own player base of Fortnite and other games that I have to Riot, right? There's got to be some sort of a monetary
Well, yeah, like, and who?
appropriation,
Yeah,
right?
I'd be curious. Maybe it's also a legal requirement. Maybe like that IP is now on the Epic Store, so it's not
Yeah.
like I don't really know, like a copyright problem. But
And this too.
yeah, okay. PUBG Mobile, by the way, now has Arcane presence as well. Like this is featured in the fucking again, like they're mashing up the clips. You can get a fucking. Do we have the image of it? An Arcane themed weapon in I don't know PUBG Mobile,
In
man. I
PUBG,
fucking
I
no
think,
idea.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
game kind of slaps from what I can tell, but I've never really touched it. But there's a fucking
Huge
there's
in
a-
Southeast Asia.
So my question to you is, I think a lot of people have been waiting for the world of Valorant to get fleshed out to this degree as well. When the
Yeah.
fuck do we get some some deeper cuts of Valorant lore? It's taken like what 10 years in League to get us to here, but man, I know we're hungry to learn more about the world that Valorant is set in and learn a little bit more about the characters in that world.
Yeah. What's cool about Valorant, at least, is that whenever we have these cutscenes and these storylines that come out in within the past year, whenever there's a new act or I think it's in new episodes, they had these video come out. At least within the videos, there it is, the Arcane PUBG
That's
weapon.
wild, man.
It's fucking sick. Dude, fucking Riot owns. What can I say? Tencent and Arcade, you guys fucking
I know
own.
it's pissing me off
Riot. What can I
because
say?
like just because I sometimes as much as I like Riot stuff and I play all the games, I can't be a part of the Riot ecosystem right now as a Rawkus talent. So part of me wants to like be critical of them, but I can't do it, man. They're just fucking like just being
soon
completely
TM.
transparent. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. They are not missing. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
got so much IP that they're doing such a great job with. So I
Yeah.
just wish that like I don't know, certain other game developers were able to hit the mark in this way. So
Maybe soon. We keep our fingers crossed for you, Mitch. But yeah, to get back on the Valorant lore, right? I think it's cool that we have these videos that come out in the episodes, in new acts, or new episodes again. Sorry, I keep repeating myself on that. But new episodes, but there's dialogue and stuff like that too, where you can kind of make like your own idea of what the lore is, because you now have like this idea of like a duality of men. There's the Omega and the Alpha worlds that are like kind of clashing together, and you're kind of making your own story with that. And like even Uberchain fucking linked me to the decipher from Chamber to try to decipher the message
Right,
in there to see what
the
it is. I
code.
spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours, couldn't
Any
fucking
luck?
find it. Nope, no fucking luck
Surely
at all.
someone's
Because
figured it out by now.
I didn't know. No, because apparently like the official, unofficial Discord that everybody hangs out in that also tries to discover like the lore of everything.
ARG Discord, yeah.
Still can't fucking find it. So it's like I thought it was just easy to be like, oh well, if there's an S here and an S here, I could replace it with an A, and then it could be that. But it now comes down to like a Voltaire cipher or other shit like that. So yeah, I still find it cool. That keeps me intrigued into like the next time we're gonna get something out for hints about Chamber and the messages. I think it's gonna be on other updates, right? So that's cool. But overall, back on Arcane, I just think that it's gonna be. I mean, if you guys haven't watched the first 3 episodes, fucking watch it now.
Yeah, sure. I think it's kind of smart they didn't release the whole thing at once, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but now if they're gonna release every fucking week for 1 episode at a time, I'm gonna get fucking sad, you know? But I think
Yes.
there's only 6 episodes, so maybe it's in batches of 3.
Okay, I mean, what the Mandalorian is like 8 per season, so I guess it's fine. It's maybe not as long as I would have liked, but there's a tendency to shorten these fucking series more and more. No, 3 episodes a week apparently. 9 in total, I think. being
9 in
released
total.
over.
Okay. Shit.
So
So
yeah,
that
I mean-
means it's coming up. We could watch the next 3 episodes this Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So
Don't
I mean,
call
that's
me.
that's
Oh, fuck, I
awesome.
gotta
Obviously, so
cast.
9 episodes over 3 weeks. That's great. It's a great way to keep the hype over that whole period of time instead of just for the 1 week or the one sort of release period. Yeah, obviously, and you know what they did as well. There were some conditions, but they opened up co-streaming to everybody, just indiscriminately. Everybody could co-stream. I think they had to delete the VODs afterwards. And then if people wanted to create content around it, they had to choose from a selection of clips. Obviously, they were like, I mean, Netflix, owns it presumably. So, you can't just fucking upload other episodes elsewhere, which is fine. But yeah, everyone could co-stream it.
Episode
That's wild. And the amount of viewership on it was actually pretty darn ridiculous because there's a huge incentive for a lot of big streamers to co-stream that shit. And I agree, like in chat, the world of Valorant, look, I don't know what your take on this, Vance, but the way that they're sort of introducing the world of Valorant. Yeah, this is, I mean, offline TV on a couch. I mean, that's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I fucking love these guys. I
Me
know
too.
it's so normy of me to love offline TV, but I mean, yeah.
Dude, I love watching their. So ever since I did that, sorry, we're sidetracking, but ever since I did the offline TV Valorant charity event, I've been watching like the new offline TV videos that get popped on YouTube because
The podcasts. Or...
yeah, they're just fucking hilarious, man. They have great personalities, and it's all different for every single person. That's super fun to watch. Fuck, this guy didn't fucking have a fire alarm.
What?
He
You
just went to
fucking,
go
you rob a
change.
bodega? Ryan, what's going on, mate?
Yeah. Just,
Broke into your own house.
I just got
instead
back
of
from my escape
talking
car.
about G2 and FPX, I decided to set myself on fire so the fire brigade came, just to avoid that whole discussion.
Oh man.
That's funny. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we spent a fair bit of time just fucking molding my ass off about it. I don't know if there's
What did you
really
talk
much
about? Did you talk about?
we didn't talk about the games at all.
Yeah.
Do you want to? You want to talk about the games?
I thought that you'd have something in particular about it that you'd want to talk about.
Oh yeah, I went psycho about the B stream stuff.
Okay, then no.
Yeah. All right, good.
I'll catch the VOD, or I'll wait for the YouTube video in a couple of days' time.
Okay, all right, yeah. I mean, I think I made myself pretty clear on that segment of the show. Anyway, everybody, look, great to be here with you again. I was not here last week. I'm glad to be back here with Ryan and Vans. It's always a good time. If you want to know about what happened at Red Bull, go watch Play Chat or some shit. Right? Don't fucking don't
They'll
come
have
me
something
over
up
it.
Doesn't
today
matter
or tomorrow.
anyway. Like
They're recording today for tomorrow. I'm sure there's going to be some shit about Red Bull Homeground on there. The thing is, though, FPX, no duelists. I got to mention that. And watching Fracture. If you guys haven't watched any of the games for Red Bull, then at least watch the games that have Fracture. That would give you like a
on Fracture. Giants
Yeah.
are the best team currently.
Yeah, exactly. It looked pretty good. So the comp that they had for that too, if you want to learn of like what the meta could look like in the foreseeable future for champions, I think looking at the Giants games would be a great start as a recommendation.
There you go. Yeah, FPX still on the struggle bus. That's that's about all you need to know from that one. Also, Liquid, just looking pretty darn good. Europe's deep, man. I'm scared. I mean, I'm not particularly an NA fan, but I think Europe is looking pretty darn deep now. I don't want to trigger bans.
The budget is not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, before I get myself in even more trouble, we're gonna go. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Plenty more to talk about now, of course, as we're getting ever closer to champions, and there's always plenty to talk about in Valorant. When there's people that don't pay or there's tournaments to play, we'll be here to talk about it. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.